Hey, good evening, chat. Thank you, everybody who is joining us live, including all of the restreamers. Hello, everybody. Thank you for your interest. I just wanted to introduce, what we're doing here tonight, and then I'll bring in our two guests. We're going to do another debate. This is going to be a little bit different. This one's a little more free-flowing than what I'm used to doing. That's not a bad thing, but the topic is kind of broadly open. It has the Rippaverse enhance the indie community. So there's a lot of different directions that people can go with that. Our guests tonight are B.A. Turner, this is a second appearance and a first time appearance from Helhound. I'm very grateful for both of these gentlemen being able to make it. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and add them to the stream here.
Shit.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening. Sorry, I am not prepared.
That's
a long day.
If you didn't see my last stream, I was, I think, 15 minutes late, and my internet was dead, and I had to stream from my cell phone, and that was so if you aren't reaching that level of bedrock, I think you're going to be okay. So I guess we'll just go in alphabetical order. We'll do a quick introduction. B.A. Turner, go ahead and introduce yourself to the chat, if you would, sir.
Yeah, I'm B.A. Turner. I'm a indie novelist and comic creator. Pretty well known as being part of CG, and I guess well known Rippaverse detractor as well.
All right. And Hellhound, how about you, sir?
Hey, man, I'm just a guy who I knew Eric July for, years now after I got out of the military and was listening to libertarian shows and all. And then all this drama went down. I mean, I was already, I was into the F&T crowd and all that stuff and was a little involved in comics, but far more now. And I don't know. I started seeing all this drama coming from everywhere, and figured I would stick my toes in, I guess.
Sure. If you don't mind my asking, since this is me kind of getting to know you as well. Obviously, the first time that we've spoken on a stream, we talked a little bit on Twitter. Totally cool on Twitter. Nice to talk to you. Are you more of a fan of July politically, and then you kind of navigated into comics? Is that kind of the direction it took?
Yeah. Well, I just built how I saw him off of his political takes back years ago, and then it kind of led me into the pop culture of Gary, Nerdrotic, FNT, all that stuff, along with just listening to all these tips that kind of they all tracked along the same thing. Everybody's tired of mainstream crap and putting out or just branching out from there. It's just kind of like a waterfall of everything. But yeah, I just don't agree with a lot of the hatred that I hear coming from knowing what the kind of person he's been since as far as I can remember.
All right. I don't have anything for you in the description yet. I kind of just put a placeholder there, but I'm going to go and add it later. Is there anything that you want to shout out before we jump into the debate? Like, are you new to streaming, or what all are you doing?
Yeah, I'm new to streaming. I've been trying to get set up. My channel's brand new, so if anybody subscribes to, it should have been there at the bottom. But if anybody subscribes, I don't have anything there. Every Friday that I get on a show with a man named Iron Oxide. He's got a show called Rogues Gallery. I've been hopping on there pretty much every week. Besides that,
Iron Oxide's in the chat. Thank you for joining us, Iron Oxide. Okay, so I don't have too many rules that I really want to go over. The number one rule of all other rules is no gamer words, please. I don't want to catch any sort of suspensions or trouble with that. So just keep the language where you'd be comfortable saying it in church, and we'll be fine. You can get a little off the chain, but don't go too far off the chain. Beyond that, I'm going to let you guys mostly talk because this is very informal. It's less of a debate and more of a conversation. So if you guys want to, go back and forth, you can interrupt a little bit, but as long as you guys aren't like shouting over each other, I probably won't step in a whole lot. If you guys do keep talking at the same time, then I might ask you to kind of back it down and we'll go one by one. And other than that, I really only tend to ask like clarifying questions. So if you say something and I feel like maybe for the audience, we could expand on it so it'll be a little more clear. That's really about the only thing that I really want to do. So other than that, you guys have the floor. And is there a particular way that you want to open it up, or do you guys have like a statement, or how would you like to start off?
No preference.
I mean, I guess just hopping right into it. Why?
Well, let me ask this to start us off. Who initiated this, and how did we get here?
Well, technically, I did.
Yeah, I take jabs every now and then on Twitter, so
Okay.
I'll just be sitting around and have a drink after I got off work and see what I perceive as stupid comments or whatever, and I'm just troll a little bit, and
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so he called me out and asked me if I wanted to. I was like, yeah, you know what? It'd be fun.
Yeah. All right. So BA, what made you want to have a conversation with Helhound here?
Probably similar to Tim. Yeah, just comment section was kind of getting spammed a bit here and there with some kind of trollish comments, and after that happens a couple of times, I typically challenge someone to a debate because it gets kind of boring going back and forth on Twitter, and you can't really give a great explanation on a lot of things, and 9 out of 10 folks will ignore a request or trollishly deny, but he accepted, so here we are.
All right. So I guess let's look into the question here. So has the Rippaverse enhanced the indie community? I guess Hellhound, could you define, like, for you, what would you call enhanced? Like for this question, because I talked to both of you guys about it, and we all kind of said, okay, this seems like a good topic. So in that question, enhanced, what does that mean to you, and why do you think that it has? Because I assume you're taking the affirmative position.
Yeah, I mean, I know. Well, I assume from his angle, it's going to be that he doesn't promote indies as much as he should. But for me, what I see coming from Eric jumping into comics is a lot of new faces being introduced. I mean, I know you love Twitter, and so a lot of new faces are getting onto social media and seeing, or that didn't have anything to do with comics before, but they're fans of FNT or fans of Geeks and Gamers, and Eric July's on Tuesday night's main event, and then they want to support the guy that they like, right? And so they go and get his comic. It might not be the best comic they've ever read, but now they're kind of introduced to this comic scene, and so when they start seeing tweets or whatever from people who have really good artwork out there, that like the Joe Balls of the world, like a lot of these guys that that they'll be pushed towards just by getting introduced to comics through Eric July that would have never been in comics before because of the massive followings from those guys.
And what's your contention with that, BA?
I mean, initially, yeah. I mean, one of my complaints is his lack of interest in promoting others. Kind of goes against the essence of the indie community. I mean, I wouldn't say it necessarily brought in a lot of new comic book readers, because I don't think I'd have to say probably 95%.
What is a new comic book reader? I mean, everyone's a new comic book reader if they've never read a comic before, and then they read a comic book. That's
I guess to specify, I'd say about 95% of those new indie comic book readers, because most comic book readers are mainstream comic book readers naturally. But I would say probably 95% of the Rippaverse fans do not support or back other indie creators. So it's kind of an echo chamber of support.
I haven't seen those statistics anywhere. I've seen.
I'm sure they don't exist. Yeah, I'm sure they don't exist. It's more of a gut feeling just based off of the rhetoric that I see online from the Rippaverse fans. But I would say it's not really branching off into supporting other indie creators. And your comment about Joe Ball, it should be bringing a lot more customers his way. If so, they'd be backing my campaign because he's one of my artists. But Rippaverse fans are not backing a lot of the great art out there, and I know that firsthand, especially based on that comment. But yeah, I don't really think that it's really creating new real comic book fans. I think really it's just what he could have sold toilet paper and people would have supported it. He could have sold,
He
you
would
know,
introduce a bunch
conservative
of people to
chocolate,
toilet paper.
conservative. We could have sold conservative chocolates, conservative razors. We've seen all the examples now. There's conservative freedom water. People back
Yeah,
names.
there's a bunch of
And there's
horseshit. What,
nothing.
real beer or whatever, the right wing beer, whatever the hell it was. But yeah, all that
Right.
dumb shit.
But it doesn't really mean that it's creating new fans for comics. And it's not really growing comics. It's more of they just wanted to support their favorite libertarian. I think that's what led you to his books, right? Was the libertarianism, his political commentary, which is fine, but it's not enhancing the indie community, in my opinion, because it's more just targeting him as a person and not really indie comics versus
What about
like fans of
all the
CG and
people?
such.
Yeah. I mean, but like, would we have said this before the falling out with EBS? I mean,
Yeah, I was actually a detractor, and I used that name ironically before EBS spoke out. Many of us were. I think his speaking out just made a lot of folks more comfortable to voice their opinion.
yeah, the problem is that, like, in my opinion, I mean, so you say he doesn't promote indies, but is it the indies that he has on that, or when you say promotion, I know like you're terminally online, I guess, like because you mentioned Twitter likes and retweets as some sort of currency. When we've learned a lot from the mainstream of like in your videos, you mentioned that a lot, that that's supporting indies by liking and retweeting their stuff when that's how the mainstream got to where they are, was looking at these likes and retweets, and then all of a sudden they've lost all their money, and but everybody put a thumbs up on it. How is it, how are they not buying it? Money is different from likes and retweets.
So I don't really think likes have a huge impact, but retweets are huge in the indie community. And I know that personally from being a creator, especially when it's somebody like EVS or Eric, given the fact that they have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of followers, that retweet obviously reaches a huge audience. And if they're true comic fans, then it brings potential readers and backers for sure, because reach is everything in indie comics. I mean, it isn't in anything, right? If you have marketing power, you reach potential customers, you make profit, etc.
Yeah, but are you not responsible for building your own reach? Why is someone else responsible for building your reach for you?
Well, I'm not saying he's responsible, but it's kind of traditional in indie comics to retweet others, to have people on your shows, to do just general promotion because we don't have publishers.
He does retweet. I mean, your main gripe was him not having people on the show. I mean, he does plenty of retweets of indie creators.
It's just the ones that he's hired or he's trying to court to hire.
So
Very, very few
EBS does.
aren't in his employment. No, EBS, he retweets and brings people on the show all the time that don't work for him. He only has like
but they
one
have to
official
agree with
employee.
him. Yeah, but
No,
they have to
I
agree
don't-
with him in the space. He doesn't
No, I don't
promote
agree.
people. You
I don't
don't
agree with everything. I
Nobody
don't agree with
would know who you
everything.
were if it wasn't for you getting on EBS's show after you uh whatever happened with that campaign where Eric sent you a certain amount of money and you said you didn't need his money, and EBS had you on because he was just so happy to have this guy that told Eric.
So I actually got on his channel before that happened. I've been in contact with him for at least a year. I've been in the, I guess, CG back room, things like that, for quite some time. So I've been connected with a lot of the CG Kings and others in the space. So that really didn't have any impact on it. It was just kind of a coincidence that my one tweet ended up initiating that dog pile, which then led to Immortal Rising being an awesome guy and stepping in, even though I didn't need to, and getting disrespected on, just like Avery got disrespected in ISM1. That's what happened to Immortal Rising, and Immortal Rising actually did the right thing though and stood his ground and did what was right. But you make a pretty decent point in the fact that the fact that he brought me on his channel gave me reach, got me backers, and that's exactly
That's
what
true.
we need in the space. And if
Yeah.
Eric did that for some small creators, it could bring them thousands of dollars backing. It could allow them to create more great entertainment if they are actually creating great entertainment. And then that spreads and spreads. That person gets more reach, and then their reach can help others. So it creates organic traction just by having goodwill, and that's something that I do believe in.
Okay. Yeah, I get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
And so how is he harming or I guess this is about if he's bringing up the indie sphere compared to harming the indie sphere, but would you say that he's harming the indie sphere?
In ways, I think he is. And I guess this would be kind of going to the main kind of topic would be, whether or not he's enhanced or Rippaverse has enhanced the indie community. And my answer is, of course, no. I don't think he has. Maybe in a small way by bringing some actual comic readers back into the space, but like I said, I think it's a small percentage. But I think there's a couple layers to this. First one would be his rhetoric and the way he speaks. I do not think is a good influence on indie creators. Kind of having that thuggish attitude, calling people white bread N words, and things of that nature. Calling people gay
Talk
and
about
fat.
Ricada.
And he's called that to Dick Masterson, and he's made fun of white people, kind of saying they're inherently
all these great people
like nerds and things like that. But I just don't think that rhetoric is very professional. It's not something the big two does. Yeah, they do liberal and woke things, but they're not out there calling their detractors fat and saying they won't have a discussion with anyone that's fat. I mean, that stuff's just absurd.
They do that though. They say you're sexist, racist, homophobe if you don't buy our books. Does the actual company or do some of the individual writers that we consider the individual? They work for those companies though, and they are endorsed by those companies. So
sure, but he's supposed to be better than the mainstream, right? Wasn't that his whole pitch? Was I'm going to do things better than the mainstream?
To me, yeah, I haven't seen that hateful rhetoric in a year since he started, since he learned his lesson. Because at the beginning he was being a little aggressive, trying to come back against Dick Masterson's false allegations, right? So I understand that, yes, he was a little aggressive starting out, but I haven't seen. You would have to show me recently where he's downing anyone.
Yeah, he's actually been recently. He's been retweeting some pretty egregious stuff lately. That's all based on rumors and allegations. Actually, a friend of mine, he retweeted some nasty things about her. It was maybe 6 months ago. Some really ridiculous allegations. So, yeah, there's been plenty of examples. So. But that would be
like, here we go again with like Twitter being everything. Like, there's so many people that buy these books that aren't in this terminally online space. So we have to find out how to get these indie creators off of Twitter for being their main source of life and thinking that this is all.
Well, that's his main source of marketing, though. I mean, it seems like it's his main source of marketing, and that's where he reaches his biggest audience. So if that's how he's speaking and acting on Twitter, some people, they do act differently on Twitter than in real life, but it's still not a great representation, I think, for the indie community. And I'm not saying he's the only one that acts like that. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of folks out there that aren't great representatives of different mediums. But
there's people on all sides of this thing. There are far more hateful things than retweets of rumors coming from both directions. But like Eric July is, if the most you have is him retweeting, not retweeting, you say allegations, but they're just stuff that was put out there. So I don't know, like, how they're allegations if a lot of the stuff is
accusing a woman of or spreading rumors about a woman doing things with dogs is about as disgusting as you get.
Oh
as an
yeah, I forgot
adult.
about that.
And he
Hey
did that.
Katie, I
So,
know you're watching. Woof woof.
yeah.
Just kidding.
So that is, I mean, that's just disgusting. So, and there's been other examples too, obviously with recent
Yeah,
occurrences that
I
have
guess
happened. I mean,
Lois.
he's actually put somebody
Yeah.
in jail over trolling. So, but I mean, that's one layer of it.
He put himself in jail. Stop it. Oh my
No,
god.
no.
He knew he had a
You
warrant
know,
already.
well, that warrant was based off of ridiculousness. I mean, come on, about putting bunny stickers on a
much?
warehouse.
So and
But
and
I don't want to
he
get
might
I don't
not
want
have
to go
posted
down
a picture of
that
pissing on the grave, but
nobody pissed on a
he
grave and there's no proof of that. It was somebody made a
well,
joke about it.
except for
Riley
his
didn't go
tweet
to the
of him
grave.
saying that he did it. I don't know. Like, how much more
It's a
proof do you
troll.
need than him saying that he did it?
It's a troll. I mean, you troll me, right? You know what
Well,
what
I just
trolling
tell you,
is. So
yeah, just like
I mean, I can tell you I
say,
just took a piss in the corner.
I'm
That
not
doesn't
saying
mean
I'm
it's
going to show
fact.
up and shave your shoulders, or I'm going to show up to your business, or I'm going to stand outside and lick windows and be loud. And
Well, shaving shoulders is hilarious. No, I don't know if anybody would
I mean,
actually
yeah,
like fake
yeah, but that's the
clippers. I
least
mean,
egregious. Okay, but I mean,
well,
we'll disagree on that all night, so we
yeah,
don't even
yeah.
need to go on that. But
I'd say the second layer for me is the really bad advice that he's putting out there for indie creators. The best example, one of the things he made a tweet about, which I've made a video discussing, is he said that creators should never ever ask for or expect promotion. Asking for
exactly,
promotion that's horrible advice. Um,
yeah,
Extremely small creators, their lifeblood is the ability to get on channels and promote their works. Now, it's one thing if you approach somebody in a ridiculous manner and demand it, or you are like just full blown expecting it, but to not ask at all or get this advice that you shouldn't ask and you have no reach, it means your
oh,
campaign will
you'd
go
have to
nowhere,
show me
most
that.
likely.
You would have to show me where he said you shouldn't ask. The thing is that you have to prove yourself before you have to actually have built yourself up a little bit before you like can start expecting to you can't depend on people from the jump to
Well,
make
I'm
you
not.
take off. You have to
Well,
put
I'm
the
not saying
work
you
in
have to.
yourself.
Well, of course you have to put work in, but part of that work is networking, and that's the thing. You're not expecting all of them to say yes, but you still have to shoot your shot, right? It's just like if you're a musician, right? I'm sure when he was in Fire from the Gods or Fire of the Gods, the new metal band. I'm sure his band reached out to record labels, right? They submitted tapes. That's asking for promotion. That's asking for help. That's exactly what indie creators do, and that's probably how they got on a label record. I mean, I highly
Yeah,
doubt every band, right, gets organically found, right, at some, hole in the wall bar. But that's my point. Is you got to put yourself out there. And my personal example, I reached out to probably 20 channels, and I got on almost all of them because I asked. And now my book is in the hands of hundreds of people. If I wouldn't have asked, and if I would have like listened to Eric's advice, I probably would have gotten my book. Actually, I wouldn't have funded, and my book wouldn't even be out there. Right? People would be missing out on entertainment, not just mine, but plenty of other creators. Even Jared himself is a creator, right? If we don't ask politely for folks to get on their channels for promotion, people don't see our work because we haven't built up a following of hundreds of thousands of subscribers prior to releasing a comic book because we just are not in that situation. So
yeah.
I think that's the worst advice you can give a small indie creator is to not ever ask for help or promotion. I mean, you need to
I would have to
if you want to
see.
learn
I
how
would
to
have
do
to.
things.
I mean, you'd have to pull that up for me so I could say because I can't believe that he would say, "Hey, don't you ever ask for promotion?" Like that's I would have to see that before.
Yeah,
I mean, if you want to
I
pull
can
it up,
try
but
to find it, but I've tried in the past to. It's really hard to use the search function on Twitter these days.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, it's definitely something that he is.
I mean,
he
that's
is
how.
saying.
I mean, that's how everyone that is where they are today is they were promoted in some way.
Even him.
I mean, but
Yeah.
to be that like he's bad for indie comics because my promotion is like,
Well, if he's
you're
telling
not
folks to not even ask for it, he's potentially convincing them to take a
I haven't
path of
seen this.
failure.
I mean, you would have to show this to me
Yeah,
because
I'll try to dig that
Do you
up.
recall, if anyone in chat or anyone watching knows the video being referenced, just at me on Twitter, Frost_comics, or mention in the chat. We'll try to look it up. BA, do you recall the context around it in the meantime? Like, do you know why he said that or like anything else?
Yeah, it was because plenty of folks, at least a year ago, were making kind of a critique about the fact that he wasn't promoting anybody on Twitter and on YouTube. And so he kept fighting with people online, trying to justify why he doesn't do it. And I went back and forth with him once on a thread, and he just kept going back to like, you have no idea what it's like to run a multi-million-dollar business and blah, blah, blah. I don't have any time, hibbity jibbity,
like,
the
why are
typical
you going
stuff.
back and forth in a thread with a guy? Like, shouldn't you be working instead of going back and forth on Twitter over like some nonsense? Like,
Well,
if
and
you want to
that's
get somewhere,
that was kind of the ironic thing I said to him is, well, you have time to argue with me for 30 minutes, but you don't have time to go retweet a couple small indie creators, right?
but
It
he
kind of
does though.
his
But only if
his
they.
comment.
But he does though. He retweets
He,
plenty of people.
only the people that work for
But
him. I mean, very, very few non-employees get retweets or promotion from him. I mean, extremely small amount of folks. But yeah, that's what prompted that. He kept trying to basically cover kind of his ass in terms of all the critique he was getting, and so he made a tweet basically trying to convince folks of why you shouldn't ask for promotion to kind of justify the fact that he doesn't do it, because he's saying, oh, you need to organically create
so
your own traction, and people need to find you. And it's like, well, that's just not realistic really when you're actually small, unlike him. So yeah.
yeah. So I mean, okay. So what about all right? So say he promotes these people that all work for him because it's this huge cabal, and then so his huge cabal though they also promote people. I mean, they probably have decent followings too. I mean, you got the Graham Nolans. He promotes Graham Nolan. He's had Graham Nolan on the show. He's had Paul Galimati on the show, right? And like, or I said his name wrong, didn't I? Anyway, uh, he's had. I mean, he's had plenty of these guys on his show who have promotion tactics of their own. Like, uh, so does he have to be the main arbiter of promotion? Like this, like to be helpful for indie comics, he has to like be a bit like run his business and be the number one promoter.
No, but my whole point is I'd like to see, and I think a lot of people believe he
It,
should make more effort towards it. I mean,
yeah,
it's really I'd have the same complaint. There's other big indie creators I have the same complaint about, and I don't support them for that very fact. I mean, that's just part of my thing is like I don't support folks that don't support others. If they're in it just for themselves, then I don't think it's great for the indie community. So
is it not? I mean, so in your opinion, so this is all based on your opinion. It's not based on like facts. So he's not good for the indie community because you feel like he should be promoting more, or would you think, all right, so there's the guys that like in your videos where you say that there's people that think it's morally a moral obligation for people to promote. Um, that would be a stance, right? That's an actual stance that you can have a debate about, but I can't debate your opinions on something that's not fact. Your opinion is your own opinion, but it's not fact.
well, this whole debate is based on a question that is opinion based, right? So, I mean, that's all it really is, and it's not. I made it clear in one of my videos I did. I don't think it's that creators are obligated but I believe they should do it. So it's more of a suggestion, more of, something I would like to see. So
Yeah, so you just believe that they're bad for indie comics if they're not spending more time promoting.
I don't think they're enhancing it, even though they have a great ability to enhance it with their reach. And some of the ones that have a big following have that ability, and they use it, and it's improved and really enhanced the lives of a lot of indie creators. And so I like to emulate what they do, and I can see how it improves the community when channels and folks take that path. And they don't get critiqued for it either. So
yeah, I think. Are you buddies with Hojo?
yeah, mutual. Yeah.
I mean, well, I don't mean buddies, like just friendly. I mean, I bought his book or his books, and like, see, this is the funny thing is like, um, through Eric and getting into, or I mean, through just the pop culture scene where I was always big into video games more than video games, TV more than comics, right? But I would always listen to these comics guys. I mean, look, I used to listen to the Jack Show every week. I used to like EVS's show before, um, before he died. Anyway, but like, and then was replaced with this reptilian nightmare. Just kidding. But like, um, yeah, I got in. I was off Twitter. I went my whole life off of social media, and then like not just the beef last year when it started, but I mean I was a big supporter of Nick Arcata, and had a falling out with him. He ranted about me for about 20 minutes.
That's rough. My sympathies right now for that.
Yeah, and and then I was like, you know what, I need to start getting online and speaking my opinions. And then I found all these indie comic creators that I liked, and I started getting their books. And uh, I there's got to be more people like me that it's to me it's enhanced the sphere, because look, I'm here buying all kinds of Von Coleman. I got his books. I've got like I mean a handful that I've received lately. I'm buying. I I went from not buying hardly any to just like I'm now, because of him, or like because of knowing him in the sphere. Like I was introduced to all these other people on there that I mean got like introduced me as a reader. I don't know why I would be an outlier. I'm just a retard. Like I mean, so.
Yeah, and you might be one of those good exceptions, right? Where it did get your attention to start back in other indie comics.
I mean,
but I also
yeah.
do think some of his rhetoric has actually pushed people away from backing indie creators as well. So it may have canceled out those good effects potentially as well, which is another kind of layer to my complaint. Is another one of his big pieces of advice was 99% of comic book creators do not have a business bone in their body, and that you should stop listeing to your favorite comic book
Holy
creator.
crap. This was a year ago, and we're still hanging on to that 99%. One comment. Like that video was a year ago, and he kind of debunked that.
Well, how could you debunk that?
Well, there was so much more in that video. I watched your breakdown of it too, and I understand some of your points. But then when it gets like to that, what he's talking about, making money in comics and making a living off comics, you can't tell me that some of that isn't good advice, except like you were blowing it off as common sense. But there's some good advice in there. I mean, look, you can't tell me you selling your 100 comics that you could live off the couple grand that you made off those comics, that you probably spent how long on that book. That's time is money as well. So,
well, just not to toot my own home, but I definitely did more than a couple thousand and sold. Well, I've sold a lot more than 100 books, but
well, through Indiegogo, I mean, I know that you've showed up places and sold your
Yeah. But anyways, it was horrible advice. I actually raised this, doubled or 5 figures plus because I listened to some of my favorite comic book creators because I got advice from them, and it's from the guys that Eric got advice from. See, Eric doesn't like to mention the fact that he got advice from EBS, right? Who did he learn from? There's no way he learned how to make a comic by just pulling information out of his ass, right? He learned from his favorite comic book creators. Everybody learns from their favorite comic book creators, whether it's how to write a story, how to create art, or how to market. I mean, all these great indie creators paved the way for him to even realize, like, hey, I have this golden opportunity to take my followers and take my potential reader base and create a comic.
So how would he learn? How would he learn to put all his money up front and buy and do the pre-order instead of crowdfunding? How would he learn that from EBS, a person who does crowdfunding? Why would he do the opposite of EBS, or not opposite, but why would
He
he
was
do a
in
different
a
business model than somebody he
he was
learned
in
from?
a because he was in a very fortunate position. He knew there was no way he could lose because other
So he didn't.
YouTubers have done
So he didn't learn that from EBS. Cool. I mean,
well, pre-ordering is
EBS is in a
something he
fortunate
learned
position too.
from the mainstream. I mean, that's just like a basic business tactic.
Then what
I
are you
mean,
talking about? He
pre-orders
learned
have
from EBS.
like how to actually create the comic book, right? Like
How to create, how to draw and write in a book. I mean, I can tell you how to draw and write in a book. I don't need EBS to do that.
well, he definitely reached out to EBS a ton to get advice on how to
Yeah,
create his comic book.
yeah, sure. I remember EBS talking about that too, and or both of them.
Yeah.
Actually, Eric talking about that as well.
So he didn't take
He
his
was
own
getting.
advice. If he asked the EVS and others for help and advice, he shouldn't have done that though, right? If he was actually listening, you should not listen to 99% of
Oh my
comic book
God! To
creators,
hang
and
on
you
that
should not.
stupid.
Well,
You've
I
been hanging
mean,
on this a
that's
year. I'm sorry. I
he
feel
said
sorry
it.
for you. I mean, they.
I mean, he didn't retract it. He didn't retract it. I mean, so either he
Oh
believed
my
in his
God!
own
That's the
words or
only
he
thing you
didn't.
have. I get it. Calm down. Like you that's you use that the whole debate, last debate. Just the 99%. Like, okay, a year ago comment out of a whole video, you hang on the one thing that he said, and then it
Yeah,
was taken
it
out of
was
context by
it was
Yanzi and
horrible.
everyone else.
Yeah,
I
it
get,
was horrible advice, just like saying you shouldn't ask for promotion. And that was only one
people
of
give bad
three
advice
examples
sometimes.
so far.
I mean, he said one, like no, he said one thing that you perceive as bad advice, but it's also taken
But a
out of
lot of
context when he was
That's not
talking
taken
about.
out of context. I mean, that's literally the context. He was
He
very
didn't say
clear with
indie
that statement.
creators. He said 99% of your favorite creators when he was
Comic
talking
book
about
creators.
mainstream comics. If you play the video,
No, he was talking about comic book creators in general, even pros that left the
and then he was talking
mainstream
about,
and then went indie. EVS is a mainstream professional. Shane Davis is a mainstream professional. Those are folks that he got advice from. Graham Nolan, mainstream professional. Mike Barron, Chuck Dixon, all these guys, he's either hired or he's getting advice from. So
okay, what's the problem?
why would he give that? Why would he go against his own advice,
Oh yeah,
but
that's right.
then
The
pass
one
that
comment.
advice?
That's one comment
Yeah,
you're taking out of context is the whole problem behind him hiring people.
he never
Because you're
changed the
taking. There's
statement
nothing
though.
to say here. Let's just move on. It's stupid. You're taking it out of context.
I will take that. Okay. So you had him saying don't ever ask for promotion. So that was my one kind of advice. I think that was negative on the space. And then the way he makes comments like white bread N word, some of his rhetoric, what he calls folks monetizing your
Nobody
haters,
else
all of
has
that I think
rhetoric.
is
We haven't seen
negative.
EBS's tweets calling people all kinds of crazy shit. I mean, come on.
Well, this isn't about him though. So
Well, you're
um
part of that crap. Okay.
so you have that
Is
stuff.
EBS is EBS good for indie comics?
Overall, yes. Yep. The other thing, which I will say is it's owned by not just himself, but also his fans and followers, is the fact that it's convincing folks in the indie community to prop up low quality books and almost set them as the gold standard. And they're starting to tell people, like, this is what you should be working towards. And even though they
How is
have
it convincing people by putting out a product and having them, and they decide whether they're going to buy it? That's not convincing anyone.
I'm not
I mean, I know
saying
that's what you're
him, but
talking
a
about
lot
the
of
my
folks
3D
in the
asset.
indie community are propping up the Rippaverse as if, like, hey, this is what everyone should be working towards. This is like
So
the
people
gold
don't have their own
standard.
eyes. Yeah, but they can see that artwork in ISOM 1 and 2 or ISOM 1, and they can see. All right, so you're saying if somebody tells me this pile of crap on the floor is actually really it's really good, you shouldn't be looking at the Mona Lisa. It's garbage. Like, am I gonna
Well,
just believe them because they told me? Like, people have brains, man. Uh, they
yeah.
see shit with their own eyes. Like, yeah,
Well, and
nobody's holding it to a
there's
higher standard.
well, there's objectively bad content throughout his books. For example, majority of ISOM 1 and 2 have been proven to be SketchUp 3D assets, free 3D assets. I think doing that sets a really bad precedent for the indie community, because you'll have new creators that will see that as a loophole to get something done quick and at a low cost, but then continue to charge the
EVS
premium
admits
indie
to
price
using
that
3D
most of us
assets.
have to. He doesn't use 3D assets. He's said
He
several
has
times he
admitted to doing
doesn't.
3D assets.
No, he hasn't. He's used
Yeah,
reference
I can find
material.
it for you real quick.
Okay. But in general, I don't think that's a good practice, because it's not real art. You're charging a premium for indie content because most indies have low print runs, etc. He didn't have low print runs at all, but he charged a high price for a book that didn't have much real art in it. It was very deceptive, and pretty objectively, it was low quality art. So I think that doesn't set a good standard for the indie community. We already have the stereotype that there's a lot of low quality books, which unfortunately is true. Now, mainstream does as well now. However, right, the gold standard is the great books of mainstream past. We should be working towards that, and his books did the opposite. And so I think it just sets a bad example for the indie community. And he's corrected some mistakes or some of those things to an extent, but he's still putting 3D assets in the books. There's still inking issues, coloring issues, inconsistencies, things that there's
So
really no excuse for him to make those mistakes given his budget and his network.
so there's no excuses, so there's no excuses for anybody to make any mistakes, right? And then learn
Not
from
to
their
that
mistakes and
extent.
constantly improve. No,
Not to that
okay.
extent.
So then none
Not
of these
not
indie
no.
creators deserve promotion because they shouldn't be making any mistakes.
Well, a lot of the indie books are better, and they're not making those mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, okay. What does that have to do, like, with people buying his product? Like,
Well, he's charging a premium rate for a book that a good majority of it didn't have real hand drawn art.
can you show me the proof of the
Oh, the
majority of
proof
that?
is the proof's been all over Twitter.
All
I'm
over
trying to think of
Twitter.
I'm trying to think
Everything
of the
else is
guy's
a
name.
conspiracy.
Well, if you're on Twitter, right? You pay attention to things. I'm trying to think of the gentleman's name on Twitter, but he has actually found every 3D asset from ISOM 1 and extensively shown how it was even rendered in SketchUp and all of that. So this is known information.
Or is he
I
showing
think
what you would
I think
render?
Jay Argonaut has the name right. I think it's
Yeah,
Lathan.
Lathan
Devers.
Oh,
Devers.
yeah,
I think
Lathan.
that's
Yeah.
Yep.
thanks,
I
Argonaut.
just don't see how I don't see how it matters at all, because I mean, how is
Well,
that bringing down? All right, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to repeat how it's bringing down the dang, what happened to my window. There it is. How it's bringing down the indie sphere. What, like, all right, so you're saying these little children are going to come into the indie sphere and see these 3D assets and be like, "Ooh, it should all be 3D assets." Why is this comic not have 3D assets? It's bad.
Well, I don't think they would say that, but I think there's two parts to this. The first part is it's showing folks that there's a loophole. The ones that just want to do a cash grab may actually emulate using this process, which I think is bad, right? Especially if folks aren't aware that they're 3D assets. It's no different than AI, right? If folks are using AI art and they're not telling people, and then people are paying good money for a book that didn't have a lot of manual effort into it, it goes against traditional comic book art and comic book creations. The other fold to it is just it enhances
Do
that
you?
stereotype of low quality books in the indie community. And when all
But
of
that's
the
not.
spotlights are on Eric, it would be better if they're
This is
all the
all in
best
your
books
opinion.
possible.
So this is
Well,
all in your
I
opinion,
think
though. This
no,
isn't
I think
like.
everyone would agree if Eric's books were the cream of the crop, that is what would bring the most eyes to the indie community. It would potentially pull folks away from the mainstream and say, "Hey, look at what this indie creator is doing," but nobody right now is buying mainstream
Who
books
is
even
buying?
really
Yeah, yeah.
knows
So
about
there's no
Rippaverse.
eyes to pull from mainstream, man. There's no
Well,
eyes on
there's
mainstream.
still, yeah, there's still plenty of buyers. I mean, there's still hundreds of thousands or millions of people buying comics.
I
It's
don't know
not as
about. Well,
profitable,
I mean,
but I mean, they're still there. But the thing is, his books are not even matching the quality of mainstream comics, unfortunately, especially Ice
that's
on
in your
1 and 2.
opinion, though. Plenty of
No,
people. Everybody has
that's
different. Look,
factual.
yeah, that's your opinion, dude. So everybody's got different opinions. There's people that love his shit. Is there not?
But
Is
not,
there
yeah,
not?
but they're probably not like
No, they're
traditional comic book
liars. I get
fans.
it.
Well, if
They're
they've
not
never read
traditional fans.
comics before and they've only bought his book because he's a libertarian or because of the culture war, then yeah,
Look,
they may not
I've
even
never
know
said
comic
that.
books.
Yeah, I, I, I've never said that I loved Ice on 1 or 2. So, like, I
Do you
mean,
think it's good?
I'm
Do
not
you
out
think they're
there
good?
defending anything, huh?
Do you think they're
But
good
it doesn't
compared
make
to
the indie scene any worse. Like, who
are
cares?
they
Like,
do you think
oh,
they're
go ahead.
good?
They're decent. So, I mean, one is probably a 5 out of 10, and
Mm.
two 6 out of 10. But Alphacore and Yaira, he keeps improving.
But a 5 out of 10 doesn't really make the indie community look better.
He just started, dude.
But
He
he
was
has all
learning.
the resources in the world to hire
Do you
the
need more
best people to
resources? Do you need more resources? Is that why you're upset? I
no, and
mean,
that's
what, like,
what's sad, is mine has higher quality art and storytelling with the minimal resources I have. If he would have hired my artists and they would have
why do you think your
hand drawn
storytelling's
everything,
better?
oof, well, there's a lot to unload in regards to his inability to tell a proper story. I mean, the main
Yeah,
thing
I
is
don't care
just
about his
characters,
inability. What about why do you think yours is better?
because I know basic, writing techniques, how to develop a character, how to make them relatable, how to do a layered
And that
story,
makes your story
all
better
that,
because you know writing techniques? That's good. Did you know how
for
to put
sure.
them on paper?
Yeah, they're in print, so
And how do you know? My bad, I got distracted by chat. Uh,
It's easy
and
to do.
so how do you know? Like, so you think your writing's better because you feel your writing's better?
well, I
Is
had a
what?
real editor, which is something it seems like he didn't have for the first book. I also worked with a writing coach, and I got real feedback from real writers, real professionals. And I took 7 years or 5 years to write my books, 2 years to edit them. So I didn't.
Yeah,
It
but
wasn't
so
ready. I didn't rush it, but I
so how
know
do
that
you?
my characters are properly developed. I know the pacing is proper, and there's I mean, and art-wise, I
But if
mean, I
a
know my
tree
art is
falls in,
real.
if a tree falls in the wood and no one's there to hear it, like,
Well, I guess you
does it
could
make a sound?
well, my reviews have been great from readers, so there's that.
How many? Like 2? I mean,
No, I mean I've
I've
at
seen it.
least 10 really good reviews so far, but not everyone gives
So,
a formal
but his
review. So
hundreds or thousands of reviews that
don't
like
have any
his book.
details. They're just, it's really good.
Okay, so let me see your reviews.
Can send you some later, geez.
Well, we are getting a little off topic
Maybe
because we're kind of
yeah.
veering away from the Rippaverse and enhancing the community, and now we're just focusing on BA's writing specifically.
Yeah, this has happened before.
Maybe we can veer back on topic. You sent me something. I'm going to go ahead and add it to the stage here. And this is from December 25th, 2023. This was a very long post on X by Eric July. And what would you like us to see from that, BA?
Yeah, so point number 1 there, it says never ever ask for, wait, or expect people to put
Yeah.
you on or promote you.
Yeah, exactly. What he's saying. How is this hard?
That's literally what I
Okay,
said.
everybody with a brain, look at this and read this. Never ever ask. He's
Or
saying
expect.
never wait for people to promote you.
No, he said ask for and wait or
So he
expect.
misworded, like, but this is like EVS's night letter. It's like
Oh, the
taking
threat, you mean?
bullshit out of nothing. Like his threat. Okay.
That's what he literally said right there. So
Okay, whatever. Never ever ask for, wait, or expect people to put you on or promote you.
so never ask for people to promote you.
Yeah, so he worded that wrong, but it's obvious what he's saying. This shouldn't even be in the back of your mind. It should never be something you think about. Waiting on someone else is only going to frustrate you. Yes, don't wait on others. Put the work in and stop fucking complaining. That was hard.
None of us,
Waiting.
yeah, none of us stopped
This-
working. The thing is, we do things simultaneously, like ask for promotion so that more people can see our work. He should have never have put the word ask in there, but I think he meant what he said, which is don't ask for it, because that's his loophole to convince his following that he doesn't need to promote others. And that's what he typically does, is he says things that kind of, makes his phrases and his actions justifiable.
Promotion doesn't, like he says here, promotion doesn't translate to sales. Like,
It
or
does.
when it depends. If you put out garbage, then like, all right, we can even
Well, why did his
use
book
y'all's argument.
sell then? Why did his book
That's what I'm
sell then?
saying. That's what I'm all right. Look, I'm trying to give you half a point here. So if we use y'all's argument of he put out not so good of content on the first two, and that's why the numbers dropped off, then but they so you can but like this applies to getting promoted and it doesn't translate to the sales you hope. So look, he's being like he's his own promotion. So if
But
like
us
it
normal
doesn't
idiots
matter what
don't
part of
have
promotion that
hundreds of thousands of
he had all the
followers.
promotion and his numbers still dropped off. So
Yeah, but
like it's not all promotion. You have to put out something that people want.
well, you're telling me promotion from Fox News, Blaze Media, FNT didn't help at all in any of his campaigns?
I mean, who cares if it did? Why are you worried about other people's promotion? Is like,
but that goes against his statement. If he's saying it doesn't translate into the sales that you expect, why does he bother to let himself be promoted by all these
he
people?
was saying it
It's
doesn't
hypocritical.
necessarily translate in his video on the same thing. It can. It's not a positive or negative thing.
But
It
why
can
even make
translate, but
that?
it's not necessarily like you have to put out decent content as well.
That's common sense, though. But
What's
it's
all
also
common sense?
Yeah, it's also common sense that asking for promotion and receiving
It's
promotion
also
can
common
lead to
sense that he's
sales.
not saying never ask for promotion.
He said that, like verbatim, right there. So
Okay. But if you listen to the video that this was based off of, he doesn't say that. But anyway, all right.
Yeah,
What's the
the
next
other,
thing?
I guess some of the other stuff, one of them would be, it ties into just some of his rhetoric. I mean, talking about potentially airing out or ventilating someone, asking people to pull up and basically do confrontation. There's just been so many examples of just distasteful kind of rhetoric that I don't think it's good for maybe a rapper, but it's not really good
So
for the
EVS
indie
can say
community, in my
EVS
opinion.
can have all kinds of other distasteful rhetoric, but
I mean,
telling
that's
people to kill to do things, and I mean all kinds of stuff.
well,
Like when does Eric tell
well,
people to hurt themselves?
well, you're. I mean, it's fair for you to have that opinion, but obviously the topic is about
It's not an
Eric. So
opinion; it's a question.
I'm sure there's rhetoric of Ethan's that I don't think is great for the indie community either. I mean, everyone
Okay.
at some point has poor rhetoric, but the thing is, Eric has the biggest light, being shined on him, and so he's getting the most
Yeah,
exposure in the
and
indie
could it not
community.
be
So
because of this? Could it not be his light is larger because of all the crappy rhetoric we get out of, but have as of late been getting out of the that's another thing is like as people as comics geek kind of like falls apart under the weight of the
it's not
baldo,
falling apart.
like it it's more people are gonna that is far more dangerous than Eric July is. All of their constant bickering and drama towards Eric. What like show me
There's
what Eric
truth to
July
it.
is besides retweets of something. What is he? How is he hurting you? I don't. The other side is far more negative.
Well, the other side, and obviously you're talking about EBS, Trashcast, and all that. A big part of it is humor, right? It's meant to be comedy, but there's truth behind. I'd say most of his statements and most of the comedy. And I will say one of the greatest things, if not the greatest thing that's came out of all of this, is talent, to make parody and to make puppet shows and to do some really freaking hilarious things. So I will say I am happy in that regard that the
So
Rippaverse
all right,
exists, but
so
there
we
is a
can
good
like
message behind a lot of it in regards to
yeah
just speaking the truth in the form of comedy and being hyperbolic.
yeah
It's not
the
everyone's cup
truth.
of tea, and that's
Wait,
fair.
I mean Eric has to deal with these trolls, but then they're supposed to be able to like but they're we can talk about people's wives, right, and make whole puppet shows of their wives, but then Eric can't like retweet some like innocuous comment without it being like a big problem, huh?
I don't think insinuating a woman is doing something with an animal is innocuous. I do think a Muppet comparison is
Insinuating,
quite innocuous.
insinuating
It's actually it's nothing. In fact, it's
compared
hilarious.
to vague tweets about somebody who said that they were into lolicon.
Oh, they said way more than that.
Yeah, you're right. She did say
Yeah,
way more than that.
no, he did. But the thing is,
What's up,
just
RJ? Thanks for
showing
coming by.
a side by side of someone with a Muppet, which it was a fair comparison. Like that's not
But
an
she's
attack. I mean,
the
that's basic
this other
humor.
person. That's what the other person. The other person said. I mean, and look, the wife in question, she takes it. I mean, like she just laughs at it too. It's nothing. But like there is far more hateful stuff coming out of EBS's mouth than retweets of somebody who said that they're into animal anime or and plenty of other like to a self-admitted person who's into animal stuff. So I don't.
No, that person did not admit that they were into animal stuff. Like they laughed at some distasteful art. But I mean, you can have that opinion about
I mean, I'm
EVS's
not. I don't care about
approach,
what
but
people are into. But that, yeah, yeah. I mean, but there's
the
far.
thing
I mean, my
is,
whole point is there's we're defending one woman for something that she like it's an innocuous thing when there's far more stuff coming out of EVS's mouth that is very direct and very, I would say, direct and harmful. Where he's, I mean,
Like
he's
what?
losing
I
his
guess
mind.
just
He's
out of
yelling at the
curiosity.
screen. Do it.
Well, it's also comedy. I mean, you have to understand
Yelling in anger is comedy.
he's being hyperbolic in a humorous way. Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, it is frustrating to listen to Eric because yeah, a lot of the stuff he says seems
Eric's not saying
untruthful and
anything on Twitter. He's not saying anything, dude. He hasn't said anything in a year.
he still has YouTube videos constantly where he says stuff.
Oh yeah, where
Sure.
you have to like decipher what he's saying and make it seem like it's something else.
Because there's so much
Did you hear
hibbity
it?
jibbity in squirrel words that you literally have to
Hibbity-jibbity.
I
decipher
can't
what
hear
he's saying because
hibbity and not laugh. I'm
like
sorry.
he
Yeah.
literally can never say people's names. He's always dancing around topics. But
Man,
but
it's
why do you
almost like
always
somebody
go
else I
back to
know.
EVS though? Why do you always go back to EVS if the topic is Ripple? I mean, we can have a separate,
What you call
debate
you?
on
I mean,
EVS, but I mean, it doesn't like, oh well, this
I mean,
person
we
does
want to talk
this, so it's
about
okay if
detriment to
Eric
indie.
does this.
Yeah, I mean, I think. All right, so if the indie scene is being brought, all right, so we got my bad. So indie scene's here. All right, you say Eric is bringing down the indie scene with retweets of women that might be into stuff. All right, but then you
That's
got
one of many things.
EBS that is bringing this down by like just being an insane person making a show every other day about crap. And so, like, is he bringing it down, or is it like, is the bar been lowered to where, like, it, even with your logic, he is bringing indie comics up? Because if it wasn't for him, it would be down in the gutter right now
So
because of
my
EBS.
stance on and I guess I'll just cover this quick on why I think EVS is a net positive for indie comics is he's actually creating beautiful art and beautiful stories. So he's actually elevating the bar for the indie community. So folks that
That's all
read his
subjective.
comments,
Yeah, I mean, the subjective shit is killing me.
he's an actual
We can go by
mainstream
what people are
professional though.
buying. The market
No,
decides, right?
No, it doesn't. Not when
And I
people
mean,
are
people are
buying
buying
comics
books that they're
because of someone's
receiving.
political affiliation. That's like saying a president or a political figure who sells, makes the New York, best-selling list is a great writer. No, people bought the book because of the name. It has nothing to do
So,
on the reflection
well,
of
yeah. I
quality.
mean, look, people are buying EBS's books because of the name. Why would you not? Why would you think it's because of the artwork? Look,
But why
he
is
made
his
that
name
Star
big? His name is big
because
because of his art and because of being a comic
no.
book creator.
Okay, so it depends on why your name's big.
Well, Eric isn't big or known for creating comics. He has a
So
following
what?
because of politics and because of complaining about the mainstream and actually criticizing and making fun of people. So the things that you're actually criticizing EVS on, he's been doing to mainstream writers and creators and political people in order to get where he's at.
So why are EBS's numbers dropping? Why did
Okay.
Pearson?
So someone brought up earlier, I think it was Bats, that we might be getting in the weeds because this is sounding a lot like Eric and EVS. And
Yeah.
Is that like inherently, does that the direction that it goes? Because Rippaverse in the indie community, like Rippaverse would be, specifically Eric's company and the people who work for Eric's company and the people who do whatever for Eric's company. The indie community is like everyone. So like focusing on that specifically, and it doesn't have to be Eric. I know Eric has the company's named after him and he is largely the public face of it, but he does have a warehouse. He does have a distribution method he's working on. He does have someone who works for PR. They have a lot of different roles within the company. So like broadly, the Rippaverse itself has that. Like, does that have a positive or negative effect on all of indie comics? Because the EVS and the Eric stuff, that's a personal feud, but that doesn't really
And
Does it? Is it like, does it translate to that? If we can.
Well, see, yeah, to me, that's you're right. It is a personal feud, but there's so many hangers on to the CG name, where so you have the whole indie sphere, and you have Eric July, which so man, I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry
But
about
yeah,
that.
so with Rippaverse, all right, with Rip Ascend, if he's helping creators, I know they still have to pay, and you feel like that's bad, but like they would Rip Ascend not help indie creators, or no? Yeah,
Not
I didn't
really.
think
I
so.
mean, very few. Just ones that might have thousands of backers, but it obviously depends on how much he's going to charge, which we don't know yet. And
So if
there's
he's
already plenty of companies that
but if
already
he's
do
going to
this
charge
at
too
a
much,
very
why would they
affordable.
use him?
Well, what if they're not very knowledgeable in the space and they've just been taking advice like don't ask for, um, don't ask for promotion, don't take advice from
Well,
your
don't
favorite
listen to
creator. But
99% of the people, then, right?
yes, but
So
he's
that would
one
include
percent,
Eric.
right? Because he's actually providing consulting services. So he's actually trying to convince people to pay for his advice instead of getting it free from folks that
He's
have
not.
been doing it for years and
He's
making
not
hundreds of
charging for
thousands
his
of dollars.
videos.
No, he's actually
You're talking about Ripasend there, right, BA?
In Ripasend, he's going to
Oh,
offer, he said, consulting services at a price. And he's
oh, I mean,
not even a comic book
people
professional.
people can make their individual decisions. I just don't understand how, like, yes, it's a community that consider the indie community that sells books, but they are all individuals at the end of the day. We all make our own individual decisions. Um, we all decide individually who we are going to buy books from and who we're not. And for me personally, when I see the stuff coming out of, like, I'm getting back at EVS, like his mouth, and I see people that want to cling on to him, I'm not like it. I get turned off and don't want to buy their books. I find they don't even have to know who Eric Gillette. I mean, they're going to know who he is, but they don't have to associate with him whatsoever, as long as they're just not a part of some trash cast campaign type deal. Not, but like, I just want, like, same with mainstream. I just want books without you. Can you shut up and just sell me books? I don't care about your politics or whatever.
But you bought his books because of his politics. That's why you were a follower of his, right?
No, I didn't.
Didn't
I
you
mean,
say you
no.
found him because of being a libertarian at the very start of this?
Yeah, back in 2016, but
Right.
I didn't even buy his books or the first two until like very recently, because I had to make my own take on if it was good or bad, because I'm not like a fanboy that's just going to buy it as soon as it comes out. I saw 1 and 2 like a month ago.
Right. But the reason why you followed him and then eventually bought his books was because he was a libertarian and because
No,
of his political takes. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been
because
following
I was
him.
seeing all this garbage online. So
So
I was
you
like, you know
bought
what?
it out
I
of
can get my
spite
mind up.
of all the drama, not
Not out of spite,
because.
to make because I have a brain, right? Yeah, see, there's a brain up here, and I was like, you know what? I should buy these books and make my own mind up instead of taking anybody's
But
take
not
from
because
them.
they looked good. Otherwise, if they looked phenomenal, you would have bought them at the beginning, right?
No, I just didn't buy that many books back then. I might have got Graham Nolan's or like a couple of the big guys, but like not. I'm not a big comic book supporter, like I had already mentioned.
Okay,
I'd
but
like to actually ask something related to what you said. So when you did start buying more books, um, what um, what made you want to buy? Like, so you got into the Rippaverse books. As someone who wants people to buy my comics, what brought you over to other people's comics? What caught your eye? Who helped catch your eye? What made you migrate from one to the other?
Well, like, let's see, well, I would say, back when I was listening to Jack's show, I got Fiendish, back when back before EVS disowned Rainey. I had gotten Fiendish. I mean, so a few through there, through EVS, the whole crew around there, and then Graham Nolan being on Friday Night Tights and uh, promotion through there. So, and then let's see, there Hojo was through Twitter. There was a couple others through Twitter that had to go through and look, but a lot of it was promotion. I mean, it wasn't even promotion through somebody else on Twitter. It was like uh, them promoting themselves. And I would just, I don't know. If
I do want to
something
take a
catches my
moment to
eye,
highlight
I mean,
this in chat from George. Critical Blast is already doing fulfillment, printing support, and more for years for what Rippa is hoping to do. Critical Blast is awesome. And so the big takeaway from this chat, regardless of Rippa, regardless of anything else, he is a fantastic professional to work with. So anybody, and if we have anyone here that's watching that's not just a fan, that's an indie creator that's looking for someone to do any of those things, Critical Blast is a tremendous, tremendous guy. He's really cool, really nice, pleasure to work with, and a consummate professional. He's worked with a ton of people, big and small. So I just want to give a huge shout out to Critical Blast, regardless of anything else. And I appreciate you giving me a minute to do this little commercial for Critical Blast. But thank you for bringing that up, George.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, MSK?
And the thing that's funny about that, and I meant to bring that up, was the fact that the way that, in my opinion, Eric kind of phrased the whole Rippercent thing is that it's a gaping hole in the indie community, as if no one's doing it and everyone's desperate for it. But it's right there. It's extremely affordable. They're well known, and well, in all honesty, most indie creators know that there's not a lot of effort in fulfilling your books, and you save a lot of money by doing it yourself. So it's not really a gaping hole at all, but it's a marketing tactic. I get it.
So, all right, like with manga and anime, or with manga, right? A lot of the artwork's not good, but people love it, and it's doing better than American comics because the stories are good, right? And so when you talk about the 3D assets and all this, what does it? If people enjoy the story, they want to see how it unfolds. That would cause them to. I mean, it's not all the 3D assets, right? Like,
Yeah, I don't. Well, that's the thing. I don't think a high percentage of folks actually enjoyed the story. In my opinion, I think there's actually a decent amount of folks that never even opened up the books. They literally just bought it just to buy it because of the culture war and all that. But they have rose-colored glasses on to where they're not even willing to critique or see the errors in the books because they see Eric as like this celebrity. Like they feel like they're actually part of some war. They feel like they're part of a group and all of that. Where I don't think they're actually properly reviewing the books. So it's like folks that praise every single movie that their favorite actor or actress is in, when we know like it's impossible that every movie by every actor or actress is
yeah.
not gonna
So,
all be
like, if
good.
somebody reviewed your book and had a bad review of it, would you deny their review? Like, would you accept the criticism? Well, I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
because
if
you know how to write a
if
book, so
if it's real
why?
criticism, like beyond like, oh, your book sucks, with like no actual detail or context, then I'm obviously not going to. I mean, there's nothing to absorb, right? There's no
Is
real
your guy?
information there.
Is his Slade supposed to be like a hero?
Yeah, yeah, he's actually a real hero. Yeah, yeah. But that segues into one of my other critiques, I guess, that makes me feel like Rippaverse is not great for the indie community, and it's more of a
Critical
reflection
Blast,
of
you gotta fix
Eric,
that.
is his inability to take criticism and actually take that criticism and improve
Like,
and
why would
do
you
things
say
better.
that when he's improved since the first?
In some ways, but
One
not.
moment. I have a quick question to clarify that. You said that he improves. he wrote the ISOM 1, he wrote ISOM 2, and he had the
Ah.
same artist for both of those. But then there was a different art team and a different writing team for the next two. So what do you mean by he improves?
Well, he is the company, right? So
You mean like as an
his
editor in
company is
chief, as
improving.
like presenting better
As a-
books?
As a decision maker, I'm assuming you mean.
Yeah, he's making better decisions for the company to try to keep this thing going. I mean, I get what you're saying there, but yeah, like is a different team, but he's hiring better. He's hiring teams that are doing better, and the company seems to me to be constantly improving.
So I'll give
Uh,
him credit in the sense that he is hiring better people for the most part. I think with the exception of the Saskas.
Yeah, because they're
And he's
bad
still
evil twins.
well, I don't think they're good writers, but yeah, also, I mean, what they've done and the things that they've said goes against a lot of his stances and the statements that he's made in the past. So I do find that kind of ironic, but he's still working with Cliff. Seems like he's still going to be in ISOM 3 despite all the 3D assets and low quality art.
Oh yeah, that's another
He's
thing.
he's
You're
still
putting those 3D
using
assets on
multiple.
Eric July, like,
Well, yeah.
and when it was Cliff Richards. So like,
Well,
if there were 3D assets, and then
well, we don't
like
know
we're
if he knew or not, and if he knew,
so we
I
don't
mean,
know, right?
that's a big problem. But he knew
Okay,
after the
or
first book and still used them in
so
ISOM
if he
2,
knew,
and they've already been found in Yaira as well. So there's
so
no
go on
excuse
all
to
these
use them in Yaira.
opinions and hypotheticals. Cool.
No,
All right.
they've been
But
found.
like
They've been found by Devers in SketchUp.
they've been found by
Um,
one guy.
Other people have went to the program and found them, but I mean,
All
it's
right.
a lot of professionals have also concluded that they're 3D assets.
So what are the three? What impact is the 3D assets and the cost of the book and things like that? How does that factor into the indie community as a whole?
Yeah, I mean,
the cost has gone down though, hasn't it?
A little bit, yeah. But I mean, when you're running, I mean, that's the thing though. ISOM 1, he printed 50,000 copies. I believe that's what he admitted to. I think he even admitted that his print cost was $2.50. However, he charged $35, which
That's
is
a weird thing
standard.
to say.
Yeah, it's a standard premium price for a small indie creator that prints a couple hundred books. But to charge $35 when there's not a lot of real art. Now, okay, let's say he didn't know. The thing is, he found out, or he was criticized for it prior to ISOM 2, I believe, and yet ISOM 2 was filled with them and also at a
We don't
premium
know
price.
Okay. I don't
But
care
the
about
thing
the 3D
is,
fucking assets.
well, but
I don't
Well,
care.
a lot
okay, so
of
let
real
me-
comic fans do, though.
If you don't mind, let me dial in on that. Okay.
There's 3D assets in
You don't care about the 3D assets. You do care about the
There's no
3D
3D assets in my books, and
So Hellhound, what
Congratulations.
is why if you can just articulate why you do not care about 3D assets as in regards to the indie community as a whole?
Because 3D assets have been used forever. I mean, I want to make a book just like PPP said. I want to make a book that's all 3D assets just so everybody's brain explodes. Like
nobody will
like,
buy it
so we're
because
talking-
Eric will never promote you.
Well,
How did
but
anybody else
let him
survive
finish his
with an
answer,
indie
and then
comic
I want to go
without
to
Eric
you and ask the
July?
same thing.
Oh my god!
So your point is that because it's commonplace in the industry, you don't see it as any concern whatsoever, and you were fine with the art in ISOM 1 and 2.
Yes, and I'm not going to.
And so you don't see that. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to kind of guide it, but so you don't see that negatively impacting anyone in the indie community because it's just related to ISOM.
Yeah, I don't believe that if this community is a collection of individuals, I don't believe that people see his artwork and say everybody else or see a 3D asset and they cap themselves because 3D asset. Oh no, we're not going to buy any other indie comic books. It's just an insane thing to say. It's an insane thought process.
And so, BA, your concern is what in contrast to that about 3D assets and usage?
It sets a poor example because most indie creators go all out and do real hand-drawn or digitally hand-drawn art.
Sorry, I'll stop interrupting.
The other thing too is Yeah, I mean, you're paying for high quality. You're paying a premium in the indie space, but you're not getting a premium product. So I think that's a little bit disingenuous. The other thing is, you made a statement earlier that no one's buying mainstream comics. Do you think maybe part of that is because the quality of the art has also went down, and part of that is because of the 3D assets? Because back in the 70s, the 60s, right? They weren't using 3D assets. They were hand drawing pretty
I
much
thought you said
everything.
the
Maybe they
quality.
traced some things, but even tracing takes more effort than just, digitally moving a 3D asset from one program to another. So it's actually
Technology
so
improves and
the thing is,
people take
Eric pitched
shortcuts.
Eric pitched the Rippaverse as being better. It's something that's going to compete with and do things right. Do the things that the mainstream is not doing, right? To be better than them, but he's actually emulating them in many ways. So, is that good for the indie community? I would have to say no. We're trying to actually prove that we can create things
But
to that same
it's not
standard or
all
better.
artwork, it's story as well, though.
His story is as bad or worse in many people's opinions.
That in many people's opinions, but there's also many,
You
we're
gave it
not
a
gonna count the
5,
other people's opinions that like it because they don't agree with your opinion.
but
That's insane.
his audience is tiny compared to the mainstream. What did he sell? 14,000
No,
Yaira
that's not what I'm
books?
saying about I'm
That's
not talking
nothing.
about mainstream at all. I'm
About
talking about you
13,000.
only accept the negative opinion
I
and
know
the others aren't real.
Hold on
I
one
read
moment.
them.
Can you expand on that? What do you mean by accept the negative opinion? Elaborate.
Well, he has a negative opinion of the story, correct?
Right.
And he
Yeah, I
sees
read
the
it.
other negative opinions, but he sees the positive opinions, but he doesn't believe that they read comics or whatever.
Most of them do not have
But there
any
are positive.
context. Like,
Do
you
I?
can't just be like, it's good, because someone could say something is good just because it's their favorite creator or their favorite political commentary, person, etc. Like, I want to know, why is it so good? Like, literally, what's your favorite part? What about Avery or Isom gets you excited? Like, what's the plot? Most people refuse to answer any of those questions, and they don't actually give long form reviews. A lot of it is just very, very generic, like the comics. So it
Okay.
doesn't really give me a lot of confidence. And yes, I've read them and I've given them a proper, at least one of them I've gave a proper review so far. And
So there's nobody with positive opinions out there that go into debt?
there may be some, but I'm not seeing many. I'm seeing a lot more folks with,
That's because of the
negative
sphere that
details.
you're in, though, that is very negative towards Eric July. You're going to be
No, I'm
boosted
seeing I'm
into.
seeing the Ripasimps as well in their reviews, and most of them are very surface level. So, but
But
again, getting back to the
so
3D assets, I just don't think it sets a good example for the indie community. If you have all the resources in the world compared to most indie creators, you should be hiring the best talent, and you should be going all out and trying to make the best book possible. And I don't think that's happened. I don't think it's happening
so
still. So I just don't think it sets a good example. And it doesn't prove that, hey, indie comics can make something like beyond amazing.
I don't know. I
So
think what you don't you have to prove everything yourself as an individual. There's no like this isn't
it's
a
opinion
actual
based.
commune. This do I?
I said it. I mean, it's
Or-
opinion based for sure. Yeah, I was just admitting that.
No,
That's
that's
all.
how the world works. Is I mean, you have to take care of yourself. No one is there to take care of you for you. This is how we all
What
make
does
it
that
through
have to
life.
do with? What does this have to do with Eric not making the best
The,
possible with his resources?
why does it like? Why does he have to do what you believe is best when he's?
No, in just,
I
I
mean,
mean,
he's
just
doing what he
like,
believes is best, and he's doing well.
but that doesn't mean
And for
he's
himself
putting
as the
maximum
individual.
effort. But that's a cop out though. The thing is, he didn't hire the best artists out there. He did not do
In
100%
your opinion,
real
dude,
art.
in your
No,
opinion,
it's
like
fact. I mean, Cliff Richards is
he's still-
objectively
people are
not the
still
best
buying it.
artist out there. Like
So
he
he
could
has
have
to, like-
hired. He
He
could have
could have
hired folks
hired
on the
you, I get it.
caliber of. I'm not a. I don't do line art or coloring or any of that. But he could have hired someone on the level of Dale Keown, right?
Well,
I mean,
Dale is
anybody like that.
having a hard time getting things done.
High quality art takes time.
Yes, and he's trying to do quarterly books.
Hence the opinions of him
so
rushing books.
let's focus in on that. He's trying to do quarterly books. Do you think that is a goal that the community should strive for, given that some people have had issues with lateness? Like, what, when you bring that up, you're bringing that up as like something that more people should try to match or meet?
No, I'm not saying anybody else has to do it. It's
Okay.
It just keeps things going, keeps things moving. You don't want to. What's funny about that? Now, go ahead.
No, not you. Sorry. All the Rippa trolls are in
Oh,
the
yeah.
comments. Just
Yeah, the chat's
making-
been great. I do want to thank
Yeah.
everyone in chat. You've been very, very entertaining for me.
But like, shoot. But yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry.
like, everybody's making their own business models. He's wanting to do the quarterly because he owns a business, right? You have to keep making money in that business to keep that business afloat. And so hence why we got to do quarterlies, and may not look as good as a book that takes 4 years to come out, you know. So, and Del Keown is a very good artist, yes, but he's not going to be able to push out a quarterly book. So I mean, he may be having to settle with a little less. You have to. It's all push and shove when it comes to business, right? I mean,
Yeah, but you can
Sorry, chat.
obviously
It's just chat.
hire, multiple artists at one time. Like he is for different books. But again, there's still 3D assets in there, and there's still higher caliber talent out there that could do it at a good pace if they're.
but do they
if he
want
hires
to?
them
Is the thing. We don't
exclusively.
know what these. Yeah, we don't know if they want to or not. A lot of these guys are working on their own stuff as well. Like,
Well,
they don't have
most
time.
of his artists that are doing line work, inking and coloring, are all from one Brazilian company, which
I've heard that. I just
is
don't.
strange
I
given
haven't seen
the
the
actual talent that's in the
proof,
indie
but-
community. Yeah, it's Glass House. I think it's actually been
Oh.
on his website, but it's one company that he works with.
Gotcha.
He's not even
So-
hiring American talent, which is kind of ironic since he didn't want to
So,
make
like, all right.
toys in China and stuff. But it's kind of funny.
So what about the stories? Like, say his story has a hero being a hero, and that would be good for indie comics, right? Because you see kids coming up, or kids seeing actual heroes, right? And getting to giving them positive role models to look at. So like with some comics where like they might maim every character they come across the face, that's not very heroic, in my opinion, even if for small offenses.
Yeah, I do think it would be good if he finally put a real hero in one of his books, for sure. But
What about like do you think like your hero is a positive role model for the Indian community?
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
It's so like we should maim petty burglars for life, scar them
Restate that?
across the face. Should we maim petty burglars? Should children think it like should we scar them across the face or break their legs or leave them on rooftops?
I mean, that's escapism. I mean, I'm not saying every hero needs to be Superman, but the problem with Isom is he doesn't even really do heroic things, and a lot of his motivations are selfish, and
What
he
about-
disregards
oh,
a lot
I-
of human life in Isom 1.
Disregards
And
a lot
so,
of
yeah.
human life. So, I mean, I had a question about like your the prison that they make in your book. Is So they're going around this law system and what is the purpose of locking, or is it you're just going to lock up prisoners in your own prison without being seen in the court?
Well, they're vigilantes. That's kind of what they do. When there's a corrupt legal system, they do take matters into their own hands. And yes, they take horrible criminals, rapists, etc., off the street, and they imprison them themselves. For sure.
Without,
I mean,
well, how
that's
do you
real.
know? We have to just take their word for it that that's what they're doing. Where they're not going to see their day in court. Is it
Well, you'd
that
have
corrupt?
to you'd have to read the whole book to know how it ends. So I can't spoil some of it, but as a temporary measure, at least, yes, that could be necessary, just like what Batman does and other vigilantes.
Was Snyder Batman with the with the maiming of the prisoners? He's going to brand them. Is that like kind of your mentality going into the book with that?
Chat, y'all are
Which
crazy.
which one of the trolls is feeding you questions? This is too obvious. But no, I do
No, I was
think
just
Snyder's Batman was a great vigilante and a great hero for sure. And you have to actually like. There's a lot of detail and reasoning behind why he was branding those criminals, and he was actually branding the worst of the worst. He was trying to mark them so that he could like literally notch them off of like his list because he's trying to find out like where this ring leading is starting, all of these criminals. So
yeah. I mean, I was just yeah. Uh, it's just yeah, like a I don't know. There's yeah, I was getting off
I'd
topic
like
with
to
it anyway.
get some questions from the audience here. We've had a couple
Yeah.
coming in, but they've been flying in. You guys were going pretty good. But from Uncapped Turtle, Hellhound, he'd like to know your answer to why it's acceptable to violate the license of the 3D artist that made the artwork used. Now, Uncapped Turtle, I believe. Correct me in chat if I'm wrong. Is the 3D assets used in the program? Is it not license free, or is it licensed, or how would that work? And if it is licensed, what's your answer, Hellhound? And if it's not licensed, what's your answer?
Yeah, I'm supposed to know the licensing procedures of these, but I'm guessing it's like any other asset company that once it's sold to the like with the 3D printer assets, once it's sold to these companies, they're usually free. The artist sells them to that company and then you can download it from that site, or maybe you have to pay a premium up front and then you have access to all of those assets. But besides that, I don't know the ins and outs of that.
Feel free to follow up, Turtle, if you have anything else from there. There we go.
I don't. Cool. I guess I don't know. Like, but it's not. Take that up with Eric, then, if that's the case.
That's an
I am not
interesting.
Eric.
That's an interesting point. If it is unlicensed, then wouldn't you be able to make your own ISOM books? Probably.
Oh yeah.
You'd probably be able to recreate the entire book
If it
and
was all well, everything that was
change
free assets.
the name and probably publish it. Yeah. Well, you can actually. I'd be happy to bring up any other questions if you throw my name up there, so I'll see it. And because I usually stream to 5 people. This is 30 something people. So if you have a question, CJ, please throw it up there. I'll present it to BA.
yeah, I think that's what the thing that's concerning too is there's just so many questionable things, right, about his universe and the things that he's doing. And this kind of leads into one of my other, I guess, kind of complaints is having backers or customers pay for comics to be donated at a questionable price versus just donating books or doing a 1-for-1. I'm sure a lot of people are aware of that whole debacle, but that definitely did not set a good example for the community, in my opinion.
So wait, what is your take on the on the charity.
I don't think you should ask your backers to pay for to donate a book, because then, I mean, you're literally asking people to donate instead of you just donating yourself as the, multi-million-dollar company. And, the other thing too was,
They didn't
obviously
have
there's
to.
been streams about this, but, he admitted the book cost $2.50 print from what I've heard. And he charged backers or customers $17 to donate a book. And so the math was very questionable. And so there is, let's just say it creates a potential bad avenue for folks to potentially try to make a profit off of
If
donations.
if if
You
the
should
math
just
was
say, I'm going to
questionable,
donate X amount of books, or for every 100 books that people purchase, I'm just going to donate, 5 or 10 books. That would be the kind of the most kind of natural or normal way to do it. But I do
I
think
thought that
that
was
whole
kind of what he
situation
did.
was a bad way to kind of set an example for the indie community.
From
Well, that's
Bat
kinda
Sauce,
weird.
why are people having their legs broken and disabled for petty thievery? I believe that's addressed to BA. Unless you have some really interesting night activities, Hellhound.
Some real
Um,
activity or. Well,
Don't tell me if you're a vigilante. Keep that a secret. So
oh no,
why
my bad.
I assume that happens
Sorry.
in your book, BA. So he wants to know why that's happening.
well, I mean, you have to obviously neutralize a threat, and he doesn't use a gun. He's a gargoyle, obviously. Well, let's just say it is use a gun usually, but
But it leaves a permanent scar on their faces, right? Like on everyone's
but
faces, no
you're
matter what the
but
crime.
you're okay with just killing a random bodyguard for doing their job, though? Dun
Did,
dun dun. But anyways, yeah, I'm completely okay with thieves that are holding gas station attendants by gunpoint. I'm okay with their legs being broken, because the whole thing with Dread Knight or Slade, the main character, is he uses fear as his greatest weapon, right? He's trying to intimidate them so that they don't do such crimes again, and so that normal citizens and potential thieves or other bad guys, they hear or they witness these things happening, they may think twice before trying to reenact such crimes. So it's part of being a vigilante, no different than Rorschach or a good Batman. So,
30-second response from you, Hellhound, since that was a question for BA.
I guess vigilantes are a little different than. I mean, we're talking about hero. Like, I don't know if they would be considered heroic. Like the Punisher is insane, right? Like we all accept that he's not somebody to look up to. So
Yes.
did you just like? I don't, yeah, no. I mean, like we can feel. We can all wish that we could do all of that stuff, but like it's not something for kids to look up to. And like a like a regular hero, somebody like a positive hero. I mean,
BA, do you have a response to why you went after this accusation? You went after Razorfist and not even for selling merchandise on eBay.
oh yeah, so that whole thing was he released a lower cost book for his recent campaign before all of his backers got their perks from the campaign, and I thought that was in poor taste. I think that all crowdfunding backers should get their books before it's available to the wider market. And I also think that backers should also have the lowest cost option on the campaign as well. Otherwise, it kind of makes it seem like you're trying to inflate the campaign a little bit. And
who
me as
cares?
personally, I want to make sure that there's affordable options for folks. I don't feel like, hey, you have
You
to
can
pay this even higher price just to get my product. But I guess
you can
he did
personally do
notify
whatever you want.
people
My bad.
on
You're
Amazon,
good.
but that's fine long term. But I don't think you should put it on Amazon or any other site until every single backer has a book in their hand. Because
And
I saw
Hellhound,
people,
your
yeah,
response when
I
he
just
finishes.
Yeah, I
I
was
was
gonna
just
say
gonna
that's
say,
what you
I just
need.
saw the only reason I said something was because I saw backers complaining, like, hey, I'm seeing all these people say I got my book from Amazon. I'm so happy, and at the cost and all that. And they're like, well, I don't even have my book yet. So some folks were, upset about that. And I think that's something that does not set a good standard for indies and, for crowdfunding.
Are you talking about Ethan there, or
No,
who was
Razorfist.
doing the? Oh, Razorfist, gotcha. Oh,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
but Ethan does the same thing. Like, so he's not setting a good standard either. Like,
I
and
think
you
the
don't go after Ethan.
only ones that may not get fulfilled before it's available on eBay are some of the head sketches.
All right, two
Which is
questions
a little bit
that are kind of
different.
the same thing for Hellhound. So I'm going to just show one and then the other. But the basic question, but just is, what's your favorite book from the Rippaverse so far, or your favorite part from the books, and what is your least favorite, and what would you like to see improve across the Rippaverse? That's from Enrique and Free 63.
My favorite part was the pickup truck. Just kidding. That's a joke from a couple weekends ago.
It's a good
That was
3D
fun.
asset, though.
But
But did you like the Beerstein Castle? I think that was better.
yeah, see that was very interesting. Yeah, there was.
Okay,
I
so
get
but seriously, your favorite parts and everything, yeah.
Oh, out of all the Rippaverse books, man, fuck, I don't know. Probably be out
Just
of.
your favorite book.
I got to research. It'd be between Alphacore and Yaira, but
I would probably agree with you personally.
uh,
Is there something specific that you'd like to see improved across the book or with a specific team?
yeah, I do think the writing can continue to improve, for sure. So, yeah, that I hope to see continued improvement in the writing, and then I mean we're seeing more, like we've got Gooding coming up, um, Mike Barron, and I mean let's see what I'm hoping. I mean, we can just hope that the writing keeps getting better. I mean, it's a company that's improved, that started out and it's improving. When we'll see where it goes. So yeah, the writing and seems to be what's improved. Prices are already coming down. So
I definitely liked that about Yaira, and it was nice to see them have not just a lower price in general, but actually have option D was a few bucks cheaper. That was cool. BA, would you like to give a quick response to the same question?
Favorite book?
Yeah, what's your favorite book? You're a big fan, right? And what's your favorite book?
Jeez. I literally can't choose one.
He loves them all so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
He can't decide.
I'm
so
on that question.
Honest question for you, BA from Iron Oxide. If Eric is hurting the rep of indie comics, isn't EVS also hurting it in a different way? Good question.
I mean, some people, they're allowed to have that opinion. I mean, it's fair to say that maybe his approach with comedy and all that, some folks may not think it's the best approach. But again, to me, it's all about a balance. And this is my complaint with FNT and all these complain tubers is there's no balance, right? It's just complain. It's repeat the same thing over and over and just try to grow your following base and convince people that your opinion is right. They're not actually promoting the folks that are doing it right. They're not promoting small indie creators. They're just focusing on rage bait, right? Having these cringe thumbnails and just basically creating brain rot over and over and over again. Because it works. It gets them the clicks, right? It's engagement crack, as admitted by Nerdrotic, ironically. And that's also what Eric July did for years. And the thing with EVS and other people, let's say specifically to CG, is there's a balance of creation, commentary, and promotion, right? EVS, Shane, and others are creating fantastic, top-notch books. They're also promoting big creators, medium-sized creators, small creators like myself. And then they also do critiques, reviews, comedy, what have you. And I don't think there's that balance in the Rippaverse. You still do have, I guess on Eric's, in a specific level of complaining about the mainstream and all of that, that's still there. He's kind of creating, but really he's having other people create for him, mostly at this point. But the promotion is just, it's not there, right? Outside of just his own team and the folks he's trying to hire, most likely. So I just don't think there's a great balance there. But the balance is there for the other creators, and they're doing a lot of promotion. And I know that firsthand. And so I think there's a big net positive there because of that. And a lot of the advice that they provide about doing a crowdfunding campaign, how to properly make a comic book, which ironically, a lot of that advice opposes the advice that Eric is providing, such as never ask for promotion, etc. And I do think that that is a net positive for the indie space, even if you don't like their approach on certain topics or just strictly their commentary and comedy.
Now, Helhound, you can respond to that, but also on the kind of the flip side of that, if you do see that EVS is hurting the representation of indie comics, do you see anything that Eric is doing is hurting them also, but in a different way? So either you can respond either way, however you want.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with your last statement there was at the very end when you were talking about people's commentary, like all it was Eric's commentary that you don't like, and we're not
I
allowed
don't like
to
his
take
books
that the
either.
wrong way. Okay.
I don't like his
So
commentary. I don't like his content, and I don't like his creations.
it's good for you, I guess.
So I think he meant to clarify.
Clarifying, yeah.
I got you.
You can continue.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, EVS in my opinion, he's let people in too closer into the sphere that really shouldn't belong in the sphere. They've been involved in a lot of controversies in the past and continue to be,
like the
with the Dick
Saska sisters.
Mastersons of what made
To be
movies.
fair.
I'm sorry.
What kind of movies involving what kind of content?
Horror movies, not real life movies like
Well,
the ones that
let's
are
let
made
him
with.
let's let him finish his answer.
Yeah. Couldn't help. Sorry.
Okay, so the Saska sisters, for anyone who doesn't know, they made horror movie, B-rate or whatever the low rate horror movies that are very cheap, up in Canada, and they've got pictures with Trudeau that everybody loves to point out to. And even though there's plenty to go around on EBS's side too, they made horror movies with like content that are horrific, and a lot of people probably don't want to see. But you know what they didn't do is real life uh, versions of that exact same thing that are happening with Riley, Vito, or people that are being accepted in the CG that don't have anything to do with comics. That, well, I guess Vito's got a late book that he might come out with eventually, and then you've got Dick Masterson, who all of them have been involved in controversies for a long time. Before comics, they were let in to all this. So it's bringing a lot of dirt into the comic industry that doesn't need to be there. Along with EBS's comments or his joke of him getting mad and throwing his headphones and breaking everything. That was a funny joke. But like all those funny jokes where he just gets very angry and yells about Eric July for 70 episodes is very strange behavior that you don't see from the other side. So I would say that's more harmful, yes.
I want to bring up the next question we have from CJ. Sorry about your word. No problem at all, man. You are totally cool. But he has a question for you, BA. He brought up the Rippaverse prices being a premium, but Rippaverse comics, specifically the more recent ones, are much lower per page. So I guess his question would be, how do you have a response to that, or do you see that as like, can you acknowledge that as being a positive that's come from Rippaverse being able to lower prices?
Yeah, I acknowledge that. Earlier, I do think that is a good thing. It's a bit more fair, but it still is a premium indie price, right, at the current price level, for sure, especially given his print size or print run size. So,
okay.
But he's also trying to retain his customer base and potentially bring in new customers. I think he realizes in order to do that, he's got to be more competitive price wise.
I
But
feel
he's
like this
also-
won't be something that people. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that's also, maybe the books are a bit cheaper, but he's also selling trading cards that are $75 for 22
So
cards,
is
and people
Shane.
that
So
have
is a bunch of other people. Cool.
not for $75 for a pack of 22 cards.
All right,
which
I
are
want to.
quite
I'll.
affordable
He
cards.
had another one, so I'll read this
Yep.
one out, and kind of as a continuation, and then we'll go to Hellhound after you have a chance to read and respond. BA. Also, when talking about quality and comparing to mainstream, there's no one in Comicsgate going around writing masterpieces. Most of these people are beginner writers and not Chris Claremont. How would you respond to this? Mostly kind of a statement more than like a question, but how would you respond to that?
I mean, obviously, using someone like Chris Claremont or Alan Moore that's a bit extreme. There's not a lot of people on that level, but there are. I mean, I have to say he's wrong for the most part because you have folks like Mike Barron and Chuck Dixon, right, that have been writing indie comics for years now, including for the Rippaverse. So you kind of criticize the Rippaverse without knowing it right there. But also, there's a ton of great reviews out there
Yeah,
for
there's
John
Shane.
Mulan's books, for Shane Davis's books, for EBS's books. So there's obviously a large audience and customer base for all of those guys and beyond. Right? There's a lot of excitement around Jimmy Reyes's books. There's a lot of professional, ex mainstream writers in CG that have done very well for themselves, and they're writing at the same level. Maybe with the exception of Alpha Core.
Well, so Hellhound, your response to CJ's the previous and this current one. I can pull up the last one if you'd like. And chat, thank you for all the questions. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate all the activity and engagement. I'll try to get to every question that I can, as long as these guys are willing to stick it out. I really appreciate it. So, do you need CJ's last statement, Hellhound, or are you good with this one?
Yeah, I didn't see that last statement. But,
Okay, so sorry about it. First off, for BA, brought up the reverse prices being a premium, but Rippaverse comics, specifically more recent ones, have much lower per page. And then his follow-up to that one was talking about quality and comparing to mainstream. There's no one in CG that's writing masterpieces.
Yeah, I agree. The prices seem to be coming down, and and we're going to be. I think we'll probably see them come down a little bit more. I don't know how much lower he can actually go with a. He's got a business to run, right? He's got people to hire, people to bring in. Once the quarterlies start going, maybe you can bring it down a little bit more. But right now, it's at the same price point as all the other people complaining. But it's not to their quality, so it shouldn't be the same price as my
Well, you
quality people.
you gotta consider print run size. When you're printing a couple hundred or even a couple thousand, that's
care.
a big cost variance to when you're running tens of thousands of books at a time. It's basic economics. And Eric said everyone should learn basic economics.
Yeah.
Not like
But
that.
EBS, they're large enough to where his book shouldn't be $35 a piece either. Then, if we're going by that logic,
His books don't have 3D assets.
So in comparison to mainstream, would you agree that most of the stuff that you've read from Comicsgate identified creators and writers, do you think that as far as quality, that it's not really up to snuff? It's not meeting like the mainstream bare minimum. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think there's a reason why Graham Nolan, or like the big names, the guys that came out of the big companies that have been doing it for a long time, there's a reason they sell better than the guys that are just starting out. It's because they have been at this. They know what they're doing when it comes to art and writing. And the reason, like,
there's CG though. It's part of the question, right? That's Graham Nolan is CG. Art Thieber is CG. Mike Barron is CG. So a lot
was
of
that related to your point? Was that he's doing
CG.
better? Hellhound, were you saying that he was doing better as part of CG because he's been doing it for so long?
Yeah, well, they're going. There's no so outside of the massive guys like Graham Nolan and them that have been doing it forever. The smaller guys are not. They're young at it. Yeah, my bad. from that wrong. They're young. They're just now starting, and they're not going to be making masterpieces that guys like Graham Nolan and them that have been doing it for years. Of course, I mean, I doubt CJ would say that Graham Nolan's not making like really good books, or these guys that have been around for a long time. When he's saying CG, it's the younger guys that are just now starting. They're not making, their writing's not on par. Their artwork may not be either, but everybody's growing and learning, and it's if we can quit drama, then maybe we can do your dream and bring everybody up.
This is a question I think addressed to both of you guys. He's asking, can we agree that the issue is Eric's behavior? He says poor behavior, but I'll just say behavior more than it is bad art. He says, I think people would be more forgiving of a new creator if it wasn't for what he calls dishonesty and dishonorable behavior overall. So I guess, Hellhound, I'll let you go answer first.
I just, to me, it's an insane comparison of Eric's behavior compared to EBS's or these other guys that seem to be harming the industry more. I just don't know what you mean by poor behavior. Yes, he did monetize his haters, and he used to come at people online, but he hasn't in a long time. I mean, we have far more recent examples. It's just I don't get the take. I disagree vehemently.
And BA, what's your response?
I mean, I think it's a pretty even split between the two. I think the dishonesty and, again, his rhetoric only shines a bigger spotlight on the bad art and the bad storytelling and some of the bad hires, where I think he would have gotten more grace, had he been able to handle the Dick Masterson situation better and, have just better ways of dealing with critics on Twitter. So I think he really did blow things out of proportion and kind of threw fuel on the fire, if you must.
Same kind of a question, follow up from same user Ghost. He's asking, BA, do you think that the real issue is the personalities involved more than the actual creative output? If people were kind of supportive of one another, do you think that the issues would have been nullified? I think that's a good question too.
I still think the complaints would have came out in regards to the quality, because you do have hardcore fans in the indie space. And I still think you would have had disgruntled fans for sure. But like I said, I think the personalities, the behavior that, put a spotlight on it, right? When somebody speaks out and then someone with a bigger audience agrees with that or wants to share that, right? It just creates this domino effect, and it really, really grows. So, and as we know, that whole situation with Nina and Dick, that was kind of the match that got lit, that kind of exposed the whole situation to an extent. So,
and
again,
what do you think? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say real quick, like, you also have so many YouTubers involved that have such big followings, and you have critics of them and super fans of them. So of course it's going to spread like a wildfire. And it was already decently big for quite a few months before EBS even voiced, his complaints and discussed the Night Letter. So, it was already happening.
Yeah. I think if if EVS, or like if they could have settled this in EVS, it's just a weird possibility to think of, because EVS is making so much money off of the people, that the hatred that he's brought towards Eric July, that I can't even see a world without him going the way that he's gone. But like if personalities what involve more creative output and people would be more support. Yeah, I think when you were talking about Dick Masterson, he was trying to harm his business. I don't know why he has to listen to his criticism when he listens to other people's criticism. But you don't have to accept everyone's criticism. And Dick Masterson is a joke. So Anyway, but yeah, I guess if they didn't butt heads, maybe EVS could have found a new enemy since he has to have an enemy every couple of years. But I just I don't know exactly how to answer that question.
Well, he has a ghost again, 3 in a row, a hat trick. He's got a question for you as a follow up. What is it as a customer that drives you to buy? I actually kind of touched on that earlier. Would you agree to you? It is fair to say it isn't about the art, but pure entertainment, as you have said. Do you think that? Would you say that's a fair summary for you?
What is it isn't about the art, but pure entertainment, as you said. Entertainment as of writing. Is that what you like?
I think he's talking
What
about
drives?
like the entertainment that you get from everything, and that things like some people, some like I assume, I don't know Ethan. I assume that someone like Ethan, that draws everything, because I'll tell you what, I know this firsthand from a lot of artists that I know. They hate AI art, and they see AI art as being cheating. They see AI art as taking what they do and reducing it to a couple of prompts and a click. And so when I genuinely, I consider them real artists. And so when you say, I'm not throwing shade, but when you have a real artist who sees someone using AI art, they get offended by that. So I think to bring it back to Ghost's question, do you care less about the art, about AI art, 3D assets, things like that, that an artist or someone who's like art sensitive would be offended by? Do you not care about that because you just want to see, okay, just give me the book? I don't care about if the art is made this way or that way. I just want to read the book. And is that more your focus, or do you care more about the art? I think is what he's asking.
It's a sum, like a lot of things. It's a sum of all of its parts, right?
Hmm.
I like Berserk, right? I own the whole volume or every bit of Berserk, right? So the artwork, amazing. The story, fucking freaking fantastic, right? So like, it's it's the only thing that I like have spent so much on to get every bit of, because it's, to me, it's a really good story and really good art. There's a few things. I mean, there's only a few things where I'm going to go out of my way to. You have to be. I mean, I mean, it's not just about entertainment. It's about everything's a sum of its parts. People can enjoy one part of a thing and not the other. But I think the story sticks with people more than artwork in a lot of cases. Um, yeah, so it's not really about pure entertainment. That's like consumerism uh, at its whole, I guess. That's strange.
Okay.
So,
BA.
yeah, one thing I'd like to kind of piggyback off one of your comments about, you know, EVS hating on Eric and just the word hate being brought up, right? Like, just to clarify, I think most people don't actually hate Eric, right? We just dislike his rhetoric and how he's kind of handling the Rippaverse. But I kind of find it ironic when people bring up that term, especially kind of placing Eric in the position of being a victim, because wouldn't you say he and others like FNT have been pushing hate towards mainstream creators, film directors, actors, actresses like Brie Larson for years? Mark Hamill, for a great example. Is that acceptable? But not what
What
EVS
criticism?
does? Well,
What?
they don't. They
How
do
is?
more than criticize. I mean, they call them all sorts of names. They run their name through the mud. I mean, is it any different? And if that's how part of how Eric and them got their following was
Are
were
y'all
able to
in?
make their money, wouldn't they be one and the same technically?
Are you in the
Is
mainstream,
it
or are you
all
in
fair
Hollywood?
game? Are indies immune to criticism and mockery and parody? I mean,
I
you've
mean,
seen many people in here mock me and make fun of me.
well, they're doing the
That's
same thing
okay,
to
right?
me. So, like, yeah, yeah,
Right.
I
So
don't care.
it's everyone's technically fair game, but my point is they've made money off of and created a following off of hating the mainstream and calling actors and directors all sorts of names and pushing hate
Yeah,
towards them. So
yeah,
it's no
EBS.
different.
Yeah, I mean, look, EBS can do that. I don't think it's smart for indies. But he's created a following. That's fine.
And
He can do whatever he wants to do.
But that's what
Every
Eric did as
FNG
well.
can do what they want to do, and I enjoy it. I don't enjoy what
Exactly.
EBS is doing, and I don't think it's good for indies.
But it's the same thing. So
This
you
is all
enjoy.
opinion, right? You've
I
been
know, but
talking about this is all opinion, no facts. I get
I
you.
know,
Like,
no, but you've been framing it as if, right, it's wrong and bad what EBS is doing, even though it's the same thing that FNT is doing, but you enjoy it. So you can understand why many of us would enjoy Trashcast, right?
is Eric
He's a famous YouTuber.
is he attacking EB? Like, well, okay, yeah, I guess. I mean, I get what you're saying. I kind of but like Eric's not doing a show every week attacking EBS
He used to do
anybody
monetize your
associated with the
haters
teaching game
before EBS even came into the drama.
before,
Eric was monetizing his haters.
and then he started his business
No, he was
and
doing
stopped
that.
doing the
He
dumb
was
crap.
no, he was still doing that.
He did like one more after he started the business. Okay, sorry, I misspoke.
I'm
And
just
then he
saying,
stopped.
like, they're all doing the same thing in a way. But again, my stance is there's a balance on one side, versus the other. But you can understand why folks on one side might enjoy what EBS is doing, just like folks like you might enjoy when they're taking jabs at the mainstream and those creators.
You can enjoy whatever you want. I mean, that's fine. Like, I'm not telling you not to enjoy
Yeah.
EBS's what's it called, trash gas.
Okay.
Fine.
Yeah, I'm just
Have at it,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's like, it's all fair. So just want to make sure that, we have that
But Eric's
understanding.
not allowed to talk. Like, I don't get why but you have a standard where Eric is bringing down comics because he's not promoting enough, and he's not even out there making joke streams all the time. Like, so,
Well,
but he's worse for like comics for not saying anything, like not doing 70 trash casts.
no, that's not
I
my
don't.
stance. Promotion's part of it, rhetoric's part of it, insulting and attacking small creators, criticizing and taking jabs at crowdfunding, and almost trying to scare people out of backing crowdfunders. And just again, the whole advice about don't ever ask for
That was one
promotion
video
and
like a
don't
year
listen to
ago.
your. But again, it's fair game. But my point is, those are all the things and more, that I think are not a net positive for the indie community.
I think this is
Well,
addressed
I
to
guess there's a lot
both.
of
Oh,
negative.
sorry. Go ahead, Hellman.
Oh no, you go ahead, man.
I think this is addressed to both of you guys. Andrew asks, would Eric be as successful as he is if he didn't have a large YouTube following? Since you were just speaking, BA, why don't you go ahead and take this one first, Hellhound?
So if he had the same, say, level of, YouTube subscribers and Twitter followers as me, I don't think ISOM would have cracked $2,000. I think very, very few folks actually backed it because of the art, because of the plot, and because of the comic book in general. So, yeah, I don't think it would have went anywhere. But this is, again, we've seen this with other famous people where you can make about anything and convince your followers to buy it, and that's what gave him all the traction. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't understand why he's so defensive of that fact. And again, it's the complete opposite with the folks like EVS and Shane, right? They're known for comics and being creators. So
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, that goes both ways, right? Like, this goes for anyone. Like, if EBS didn't have his YouTube following, Cyberfrog never would have taken off the way it did. I mean, he formed his own YouTube following. Any of these guys, like any that use YouTube for promotion, wouldn't be selling what they are if it wasn't for their YouTube following. It's not just Eric.
But you would agree that Andrew, what he's saying, that's the case, but that's a good thing, and people should seek to do that with YouTube and use platforms, right?
Yeah, I mean, whichever.
Not to put words in your mouth, just summarizing.
No, yeah, I mean, if you're Yeah, if you're trying to, I mean, I guess as a way of self-promotion, and if you're able to build a large YouTube channel and you're trying to sell yourself or sell yourself to a crowd, um, then I mean, YouTube's a good way to do it if you have the personality. There's other ways, I guess, to do it. It's just, yeah, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be more. You got to look at how you can make yourself the most successful.
I like this next one from CJ. Friday Night Tights does promote other books. They've had Eric, Graham, Chuck, Kelsey, Gabe, and others on their channel. Also, Gary earned his platform. No one's entitled to his platform. So I guess BA, we'll start with you. What's your response to this as far as the people that he mentions that are being promoted and Gary and his platform?
Well, Eric is obviously a friend of theirs, and they want Eric on their channel to get his followers to follow them and to sub. So it's a marketing strategy. They have Graham because, well, Graham is connected to Eric. Chuck is connected to Eric. Gabe is on Eric's team, so that's 3 out of 5 there, 4 or 5, yeah, that are part of the Rippaverse are connected. Actually, 4 out of 5. Kelsey, not exactly sure why he was on there, but he's a well-known creator, obviously. But that's I mean, that's only 5 people. That's nothing compared
They
to
all have their own.
what so many other people in our space have done. So, I mean, kudos for promoting a handful of people, but it's not really doing much for the indie community.
I mean, but they also you promote them, and they have their own channels and Twitters and everything else where they can promote other people as well. So it's like it all
Just small
flows
trickle
down.
down, but there's a lot more trickling that could happen for sure.
You have anything else you want to say to that, Hellhound?
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, there would be more trickling all the time. We would all be millionaires. We would, but it's not a perfect world. It's you have to be what do for yourself what you want for yourself. You can't, like he said, you can't wait around and depend on other people. You have to put yourself out there.
Talking and drawing with Shane Davis. We have yet seen any real interest in making a high quality book. 4 books into the Rippaverse. When will Eric make one? Hellhound, I'll let you answer that first.
I don't know, Shane. Let's. Do you think that you're gonna you don't like Chuck Dixon, Shane? Or you don't? What about Mike Barron? You're gonna shit on his book when it comes out?
Well, the thing is, they're not being given good plots. They're not being given good characters to work with, right? They're not developed well. They're not even really developed at all, and they're not heroes. They're not really anti-heroes. A lot of them are just assholes, really. I mean, so the thing is, if they were really intriguing and interesting characters, I'm sure they would both knock the books out of the park. But you could give Alan Moore, if you give him a horrible character with a horrible storyline built around that to work with, well, first off, he would turn it down because he actually has really high standards. But I don't think even Alan Moore would be able to create a phenomenal book. So, yeah,
I
they're
get what
not
you're
being
saying.
given
The
much.
universe is just full of characters you're not interested in, and may not interest a lot of people. And so they have to work with what they have. But I mean, people
Well, thank you
seem to be
for thanks for
interested so
swinging
far.
by, Shane. I appreciate that. Next question. I don't. This one, Enrique says, "Will Ripa put out a warrant on Eric July for trying to harm his business by not double checking the ISOM trademark?" Okay, I'm gonna just keep on scrolling on that one. Tevin, can't you see that Eric's comics were too overhyped given the quality and plot that he gave to his fans? Hellhound, what do you think?
Too overhyped. I mean, all right, you could. I don't know what too overhyped would mean, but I would say there was a lot of hype going into Ice on One. It was his first book with his new startup. So that's, I mean, probably why it did so well. There was there was a lot of support from every direction during that first book. So, but I don't know about I mean, overhype is subjective, I guess, especially here. People hate the book, people like the book. Um, so, but then, I mean, but people bought the book and people are still buying his book. So I don't know about overhype, but, but that's all I have.
BA.
I think there was a lot of blind hype for hype's sake, right? FNT and crew folks that even after Ice on One and a lot of the obvious issues with it continued to prop it up again with no details or reviews, just a lot of like hyping for hype's sake because they're trying to make money and increase their engagement off of Eric. So I don't think a lot of the hype was
Chat, you
really
guys are
deserved or legitimate. But real quick before we go to the next question, my final kind of reason of why I don't think
Yeah,
Rippaverse is
certainly,
positive
certainly.
for the community is I think he uses a lot of scare tactics to try to convince folks that his way is the way and the best way
Who, EVS?
or the only way.
Just kidding.
In the sense that like he's really pushing the whole scare tactic about late books, even though it's a very small percentage of creators and it's some specific creators, but it kind of gets generalized into crowdfunding as a whole. And just again, the fact that he's saying that these creators do not have business bones in their body, as if like, hey, there's a risk that their universe may not continue because they're just going to go out of business, things of that nature, and how like, oh, you've got to have like pre-ordering. And I just think a lot of his marketing strategy is gauged around kind of knocking down other methods and creators to build up his method and his way of doing things. And in the indie community, for most of us, the lifeblood is literally crowdfunding. I have no issue with pre-ordering. I mean, essentially my campaign was pre-ordering because my novels were 100% done. My comic was like 80% done before the campaign was over. I just needed to know how many to print, and I needed to make sure I could recover my costs. Nobody's complaining about doing pre-orders, but I don't see any benefit for the community in trying to essentially scare folks about the potential risks of crowdfunding. That'd be like if you go around just scaring everybody about, oh, well, you could get food poisoning from food at grocery stores. It's a possibility. Like, oh my gosh, everybody be careful. Like, or, oh, you go to a mechanic, they could mess up your car. Like, it's always a possibility to have a bad experience as a customer, but I don't see the benefit in the community to just highlight these very few and rare instances where folks just don't get a book. I mean, that's extremely rare. And the late books thing, I mean, there's nuance to that, and things are a lot different for folks that are doing everything themselves. And they're also, again, not using SketchUp, 3D assets of that nature. So I think some of the marketing tactics are not a good example for the indie community. We should all be lifting up crowdfunding, promoting it, pushing it as hard as possible, even if you're doing pre-orders, because it's what allows creators like myself to even exist, to even be able to get books into folks. And without it, so many people would be lacking entertainment and they'd be missing out on wonderful stories. So I do think he's potentially pushed people away from fantastic campaigns just because of how he frames things.
Since that was his last point, his last kind of objection to why the Rippaverse has not enhanced the indie community, is there anything that you'd like to say specifically in response to that or addressing that, Helhound?
No, I mean, it's the same point I've heard that like I will just go on a circular argument here. So I don't want to drag it out any further. It's just the same circular thing. So
I mean, have you witnessed those videos and stuff where, he's just really focused in on late books and kind of all the risks of crowdfunding out there?
there are risks to crowdfunding, but
There's risk to pre-ordering too.
Have you ever pre-ordered a game or like anything? Like,
Yeah, they get delayed. from time to time. I mean, things
Sounds
happen,
like
but I
20
mean,
years or whatever, but like, yeah,
but see, you're going to
I mean,
extremes, which is a very, very
yeah,
small percentage. And
yeah,
why
but
would he be
there's
trying to knock down
there
even those creators that
it's
are
far more
late?
extreme. It's a far more extreme case in pre-ordering than it is in crowdfunding.
I mean, there's no
We have
guarantee you're going to get your book, even if you pre-order it. I mean,
There's no
technically,
guarantee in
right?
life. I could die in a car crash tomorrow. It's like uh, you're, but yes, crowdfunding. Like there, all. Why can he not say that there is risk? There is more risk in crowdfunding.
He can, but why? Why even do that if you're trying to lift up the indie community? You're trying to grow the community
So
as a whole.
you're not allowed to say anything bad about. Like you're not allowed to say anything perceived to be bad about anything that should be lifted up. It's like that's very strange.
Crowdfunding and the success of it is what gave him this opportunity. It's what paved the way.
He's not even. That's not even necessarily a bad thing. He's just uh, knowledge is a bad. Like, hey, there's it's a higher risk than me dying in a car crash tomorrow, or a higher risk than somebody not getting their pre-ordered game or whatever. Because most like I mean, there's been articles for a long time about scams in crowdfunding. I mean, it happens. It's happened a lot. It does happen a lot.
But he
Um,
doesn't give specific examples of
I don't see any articles on
such
scams in
instances.
pre-ordering. Do you need
I'm sure
examples, you
there
said?
is.
Or I mean, I got a couple.
No. I said, why didn't he zone in on specific examples of where like a campaign never fulfilled, right? Or when it was a scam. It's always very generalized about the risks, or again, like late books, even though again,
Because
small
it's a general
percentage.
risk. I
But why highlight them if crowdfunding is the lifeblood of the indie community? Why do anything that could scare people away from backing books unless potentially it's to push them towards your method because all of those risks are gone. You kind of get where this could be perceived as kind of complicated.
yeah, I mean, everything could be perceived like it's if you're looking for hatred, you're gonna find it. Like it's if you're looking for things to sound bad, you're gonna see it as bad. Like it's when everybody is on like it's like a political thing. It's very strange where people on one side of the aisle yell that the other side is saying this this thing that is like taken out of context and people certain number of people are going to just run with that and then that's going to be that when he says that there's I mean what is wrong with so what if people did switch over um to more of a pre-sale model, why does that bother you? It's still a type of crowdfunding in a way.
Well, Eric doesn't believe he's crowdfunded, so we got to make sure we
No,
clarify that. But all jokes
he-
aside, it would prevent creators from being able to bring their creations to life because crowdfunding is what
they
makes it
don't have
possible because most people are not sitting on thousands or tens of thousands of
that's why you
dollars.
have to work on
It was
yourself.
$200,000 that I used to start the
Two
Yeah,
Ripaverse.
hundred
yeah, I
thousand.
think it was 250 even. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he hired. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
Anyways,
I guess you need to raise, or you need to work on yourself and get yourself the money you need to. I mean, if you want to,
I
like,
already hired
follow your dream.
higher caliber talent, so I'm not concerned about that. But the thing is, if you're pushing people away from crowdfunding, then that kills creators' abilities to get projects funded and get their books into the hands of people. And I haven't seen crowdfunding folks trying to convince readers not to follow the pre-order method, right? It's kind of one-sided. Everyone should be promoting both, right? They should be promoting the idea of just supporting indie creators. I don't think anybody should be scaring anybody away from any method. And that's kind of where that could be damaging if you're literally scaring, right? All these new people, right, that you mentioned that are being brought into the indie space, right? new readers or new comic fans, whatever you want to convince them of per se they are, if they're all now being scared away from crowdfunding, it's not helping the indie community because they're only going and backing or supporting the people that are doing pre-orders, which is a very tiny amount of people, and it's primarily Eric. You see how that's kind of convenient for him, but very
I think it's
inconvenient
just,
for crowdfunding.
I don't see how everybody's so easily scared, especially
Oh, he can
like
convince
how.
his fans of a lot of things, though. Like when you have a huge following and a loud
So why are
voice.
people? I mean, why are people still buying crowdfunded books then? He said that a year ago, and people are buying crowdfunded books constantly.
Sure,
Nobody's
but
scared, dude.
there's the risk that he's actually pushed people away, especially the people that
Well, the
he's
risk
brought
is
into the
gone
space.
because there's more people now buying books because of like, even if they're not reading them, there's more people in the indie sphere because of him now that are buying books
Well, we don't
that
know
are
how many
crowdfunded.
we don't know how many people he's brought in that have bought crowdfunding versus how many he's actually scared away from crowdfunding. So, but
Yeah, you
it
can't prove
poses
a
a potential
negative, dude.
risk.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying it's a
Yeah,
potential risk, but it's not a
a
positive
potential
to
risk of
even.
something he said a year ago,
Yeah.
or
I
but
mean, there's no
we
time
see.
limit on
Well, it's
this
no way of
topic.
knowing either, too. Like,
Yeah,
it's
Right.
impossible to know unless we surveyed every
yeah.
single person buying every single thing. So it's
But
really speculation for
there is
everybody.
no there is literally no positive of talking negatively about crowdfunding or
Is it
like
negative or
potentially
is it just
scaring.
a truth? I don't understand why a truth is negative. Like a truth can be negative, but like it's just a truth. Like it's, I don't
A
know.
truth
It's
about a very, very
interesting.
small percentage of
I'm not going to go in a
creators.
circular argument about this shit. Yeah.
All right. So I think you need to go in a couple minutes here, right, Hellhound?
Yeah, man, I got to be up in a couple of hours.
I'll grab a couple of questions that were addressed to both you guys or just you, so you can get through those before you have to head off here. So real quick for you, if Rippa was talking smack about the mainstream, he's punching up. So wouldn't CG talking smack about Rippa also be punching up?
Like, Ripa is one, like, whatever. I don't care. Like, do what you want to do. I mean, sure, punching. I don't believe in punching up and punching down. So I believe do what you want to do. So whatever.
What is your opinion on Eric fake campaigns? Only starting a campaign once the printing was done, so it was never a real campaign.
Eric fake campaigns only starting campaign was the printing was. I don't understand the question. You might have to.
The crowdfunding format that he uses to kind of build hype that you have to hit targets even though he's going to print them no matter what because it's technically a
Oh
pre-order.
yeah, you're talking about like you you see how many people are going to how many orders you're going to get, and then you finish printing. That seems like a rational thing to do, in my opinion.
Very important question. Which is more horrific, Brie Larson's feet or the Saska sisters twin cest movie with vomit and urine drinking? Really happy I just read that on a live stream.
The
I don't
second
know. I
one.
haven't. Yeah, I haven't gone out of my way to watch that second one. So
Have you? But the real question is, have you gone out of your way to look at Brie Larson's feet?
that I have, buddy. That I have. No, but um, yeah. I mean, just by those words, I imagine that might be a scene that I wouldn't want to see in a movie. But yeah, Brie Larson's feet are scary.
Right. Okay, so we're 1 minute away from when you need to head off, so you can actually get some sleep. Would you like to say anything in closing before I give you a graceful exit, sir?
No, man, I appreciate it. I know it or it's getting a little combative or whatever, and I'm not very good at debating or whatever, but I just thought I mean, figured it'd be fun, interesting talking to you anyway. If that's the least I got out of it, and kind of seeing where you came from face to face instead of like through videos or on the X. So yeah.
Anything you'd like to
Yeah.
say to him before we send him off, BA?
No, I appreciate the fact that you took me up on it. Like I said, 9 out of 10 folks won't do it. So, I appreciate someone that will actually voice their opinion and kind of stand by what they say. And so I think that's really cool. So, and I think it was a good discussion. Probably was seemed like it was really enjoyable for all the chats out there. So I think it's good to have
Yeah.
open discourse and see what folks vibe with who, and maybe some folks learn from either side. So it's good.
Awesome. Well, Hellhound, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate it. You're welcome back on anytime. I don't stream super often, but whenever I do, you're welcome to be here. BA, do you need to hop off, or can you stick around for a few more questions?
Nope, I'm good. I can stick around here.
All right. Hellhound, have a great night, and thanks for joining us, sir.
All right, man. Y'all too.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.